A new week of strikes begin at the UK's biggest port, threatening Britain with empty supermarket shelves.
Good morning, it's 6 o'clock on Monday, the 22nd of August. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Ellie Costello. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Workers at Britain's biggest port, Felixstowe, have gone on strike for the first time in 30 years. It is a dispute over pay.
Dock workers are threatening to grind Britain's supply chains to a halt, with fears it will upend the country's supply chains.
Bosses at National Grid have proposed a plan that would pay you to avoid using energy appliances at peak hours over winter. Under the scheme, customers could be paid not to wash clothes or dishes between the hours of 5 and 8. We want your views on that one.
Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck have tied the knot in front of family and friends after quietly getting married in Las Vegas last month. The pair held a lavish ceremony at Affleck's £7.5 million Georgia estate, capping off the festivities with a star-studded barbecue.
And we'll be on your doorstep in the coastal town, the Jurassic coastal town of Swanage in Dorset, hearing from people who live there about the issues that matter to them.
And remember, you can join in on any of our discussions that we're having this morning by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
So thanks for your company, and you can also subscribe to the GB News channel. It's on YouTube to get all the latest big stories there everybody's talking about. And remember the app. While I was off for a couple of weeks, the app went everywhere with me. The app was very good.
It's very good.
Yes. So,
our very own.
It's just accessible. It's there. We can be there on your phone. We are omnipresent on TV, on radio, online, on the app. All we need is you.
To our top story now, and dock workers at the UK's biggest container port have begun a new week of strikes, the first of its kind in 30 years.
Now, about 1,900 members of the Unite union walked out in the past 24 hours for 8 days after they rejected a 7% pay offer from Felixstowe Dock and Railway Company.
Well, Felixstowe handles nearly half of all container ships entering the UK, meaning disruption could prove catastrophic for the country's supply chains.
OK, let's now go to Robert Morton. We say good morning to him. Robert is National Officer for Docks at Unite, the union. Robert, where are we at? So it is a walkout, room for negotiation. What happens next?
Well, I hope what happens next is that the employer accepts our offer to sit around the table and end this dispute. So far, they've not replied to that. If they don't come around the table, then the strike, which started yesterday, will carry on for 8 days and 8 nights. We will then appraise our position and name more strike dates.
On the radio this morning that the employers were saying they're very disappointed because they're saying, and there's obviously two sides to every story, that it's you guys who are not going to sit down and discuss and negotiate.
Well, what the employer is referring to is that the last time we met at ACAS and the 7% was offered, they did say that they were prepared to meet again, but their position would not alter one iota. So I wonder to myself, what's the point of meeting if we're not going to have negotiations?
And Robert, could you just spell this out, because this is the latest strike amongst many that are either happening or scheduled to happening. But what is it? What is the main grievance?
The main grievance is that the company, which is a very wealthy company and well in profit, and have been in profit for a long time, have offered a 7% increase when the RPI is averaging at 12.3. So if we accept 7%, then we are accepting a 5.3% reduction in our lives as far as pay is concerned.
Robert, this is the first strike at Felixstowe port in 30 years, so it must be very serious to get to this point for workers to go on strike. What do you think was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, and how are workers feeling now?
Well, I've described how wealthy the company is, and you're right, it's not happened for 30 years in Felixstowe. And I must add that it's not the most militant workforce that I've ever come across, far from it. But the people who are working for the company, who are members of Unite, are so angry that they are saying enough is enough. We got you through the pandemic. This is the way you treat us now. And you should be offering an increase that is relative to the company's profits.
Robert, though, you're going to get a lot of people listening to us, watching their TV screens now, and they're going to be spitting mad. They're going to say, not another strike. Why you? You're being offered 7%. I'm not being offered anything at all. You know how divisive all of this is. And there is a theory, of course. This is not a strike about what's going on at Felixstowe. This is a strike amongst many, which may lead to a general strike, which really the main direction of is to bring down this Conservative government. What would you say to people who believe that?
What I would say is that what you said before, we have a workforce here that haven't been on strike for 30 years, and I've not got the know-how or the where-how to ask them to join in a strike in order to bring the government down or to join in a general strike. They are genuinely aggrieved at the offer that's been made to them. And to the people that you've described who are spitting mad and aren't getting anything, my suggestion to them is join Unite the Union. Get unionised. We'll get the money for you.
You think you will get the money? Because, I mean, in fairness, Robert, the workers that you're representing here, that Unite is representing, they've got such a stranglehold on the country. I mean, people were all being all sentimental and saying, oh, Christmas could be cancelled, but everything could be cancelled. Getting taps for your bathroom, getting tiles for your kitchen, getting everything seems to come through Felixstowe. We're talking about all sorts, whether it's food, whether it's drink, whether it's day-to-day stuff, whether it's a car that you've ordered. It all comes through Felixstowe, and therefore, this is a pretty serious strike, one that the country can ill afford.
You're right, Eamonn. It's a very, very serious strike. But if I were you, I would address your remarks to the company. They're the baddies in this. They're the ones that offered 7%, and they're the ones that are saying they won't move even if we meet with them. So really, you should be addressing these points to the company.
Addressing them to you, and therefore, you know, as a negotiator, Robert, you know you've got a pretty strong hand here, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Robert, there are people out there who are going to say, you know, you've said no to a 7% pay increase. If you're looking for your pay increase to be in line with inflation, that's 10, 11%. That in itself is inflationary. I mean, if everyone in the country gets an 11% pay rise, it's only going to add to inflation. I want to bring you the comments that were said by Paul Embry yesterday. He's a GB News presenter and also a trade unionist. He said we should perhaps argue for profit restraint on the part of these corporations rather than wage increases. Now, you're talking there about putting those comments to the company. What do you make of those comments then?
Well, there is no profit restraint. If you look at the FTSE 350, they printed last week that profits are up on average 43%. So there is no restraint whatsoever. And your remark about this stoking inflation, I would say to you that it's the profits that come first. They stoke the inflation. Profits come first, and then we reply to the profit by saying we want some of that into our wages. So it's not, I don't accept that it's the unions that are inflating the profit. I accept that it's the employers that are doing that by making these profits, and good luck to them. But why not share them?
Robert, we're running out of time with you, but I did want to ask you about the public's perception of strikes. Are you hoping the public will support you, will stick behind you? I mean, it has been a summer of strikes. It's quite unrelenting for the general public at the moment.
Yes, you mentioned that before, and from what I can see and feel, that the general public are being supportive of the workers now, because the general public consists of the workers, and they are lending the support to them more than they've ever lended before in times of strife like this.
Well, Robert, at the moment, I mean, you know, a lot of people are waking up to this news. They won't have heard it over the weekend. So what's in store? 8 days of strikes. Will this go the full 8 days and the noose begins to tighten?
Not only will it go the full 8 days, when we've finished, if the employer remains intransigent, then we will plan more strike dates, I'm afraid.
OK, stark warning. Robert Morton, appreciate your time today. We want to know from you at home what you think of Robert. He's representing Unite the Union on this one. He's the National Officer for Docks on that front. Robert making a very good case for his members on this. What do you think? Are you in support? Would you stand by those dockers and their right to strike? Or when it begins to hit the pound in your pocket, the supply chain, what you have ordered, your car, your new kitchen, whatever it happens to be, food and drink on the supermarket shelves, how far will your patience stretch on all of this? So it's gbviews@gbnews.uk. Get involved in the conversation, or you can tweet at gbnews.
Now, exactly 2 weeks today, the winner of the Tory leadership race will be announced. Despite YouGov putting Truss 32 points ahead, Tory voters reportedly have seller's remorse and would rather that Boris Johnson stayed, with some polls suggesting 49% of Tory supporters would choose Boris Johnson over either Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak.
Well, Holly Whitbread is a political commentator. She's also a Conservative councillor, and she's been on the programme before, and she's back here in the studio as well. What do you think? What do you think of that? I mean, do you think this is blown up out of all proportion, this lack of enthusiasm for either candidate? And should people be careful what they wish for?
I think Boris is still very popular within the party because he got the big calls right, whether it be Brexit, Ukraine, how he dealt with the Ukraine situation and the vaccine rollout. So there's certainly still enthusiasm for Boris in the party. But I think members of the party are also realistic to the situation that we're in and realise that we kind of need to move forward. I think many people who I talk to are enthused by the alternative vision being put forward by Liz Truss, who I'm supporting in this competition, but also kind of really enjoying the debate and listening to the different ideas.
No, they're not enjoying the debate. They're not at all. People are saying, why the heck isn't this over yet? And I mean, it looks like, and, you know, I can't see it being any different. She's going to win by a country mile.
Well, I would say it's probably going on a little bit too long now. You know, Another 2 weeks is quite a long time to wait. And I think Liz has certainly got the momentum. Although I do know people who are kind of waiting to vote. We've got the London hustings next week, I believe. So are kind of holding off their vote until they've seen them in person.
Do you think the Cabinet regret that choice of pushing out Boris Johnson, looking at Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak now? Do you think they wish that they'd stuck with Boris perhaps a little bit longer, especially with the state that the country's in right now? In
terms of kind of the parliamentary manoeuvres, I mean, there were so many ministers who did resign. So obviously that kind of momentum did come from Parliament rather than from the grassroots level. So I'm sure kind of once many MPs have kind of gone back and spoken to their constituency, there might be an element of regret, but also kind of the fact that we just need to get on with it now and move forward as well.
I want to bring in Rishi Sunak's comments. He's launched another attack. We're going to be speaking to some of his supporters a little bit later on in the programme, but they're claiming that Liz Truss hasn't done her maths and that her fiscal plans will cause an inflation spiral. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
I don't think it's a fair assessment, and I think there are different views on it, actually, as well. I saw one bit of commentary today saying, actually, it's talking about thousands of pounds in tax cuts, which will come back to people's pockets and also promote growth in the UK. So there are different interpretations of how it would impact the economy.
Yeah. What do you think about, look, another day, another strike? Felixstowe is what we've just been talking about. And there looks no indication that these strikes are going to let up. Where do you think we are with this, or what is the reality of all of this?
I think there's a great frustration in the country amongst working people about these strikes, and it is something that people aren't particularly happy about. I mean, I'm glad that both Liz and Rishi are proposing legislation to tackle that in the best way they can. But clearly, the economy is in a difficult situation, and you've got frustrations both from the workers and the general public as well. I'd like to see an end to these strikes, and actually, because it can only damage our economy.
Yeah, a lot of people would like to see an end to these hustings and think, right, you know, get back to business, get back behind your desks and sort something out. A cost of living crisis that we're in the middle of.
Absolutely. I mean, we've only got 2 weeks now, so 5th of September it will all be over, which I think many people will breathe a sigh of relief about. And actually then we can get to business with that emergency budget coming up in September and, move forward.
Yeah. Holly, what do you think about what's going on at Felixstowe today? I don't think people really understand the grip that holding up containers at Felixstowe will have on the whole country, from the most unassuming products right through to really, really important stuff.
I think it's very frustrating and actually it will have a negative impact on our economy. We're already talking about the fact that inflation is supply-driven. Well, this is only limiting supply even further.
Yeah.
So I think it's a real negative thing for the economy, and I hope that a resolution can be found and we can just move forward and just stop these strikes.
But so many people are saying inflation's over 10%, we're being offered 5%, 6%, 7%. Do the maths, they're saying, and that seems to be the message going out to every employer in the land. If it's going up by 10%, we at least want that covered in our salaries.
And this is why we need growth in the economy, actually, and is why I'm backing Liz to be lead, because we do need that growth, so we will see healthy rises in wages as well.
OK. Always good to hear from you. Holly Whitbread, she's a political commentator. She's also a Conservative councillor. Where are you a councillor, remind me?
In Essex.
In Essex. OK. Thank you. Holly, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Appreciate it. Thank you.
OK, it's 17 minutes past 6. Let's bring you up to date with what else is going on today.
Former Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone is due to appear in court this morning over an alleged failure to declare £400 million of overseas assets to the government. He faces a charge of fraud by false representation between 2013 and 2016.
Almost 38,000 follow-up mental health appointments were missed during the pandemic. The Royal College of Psychiatrists says the sessions should have been made within 2 days of patients leaving a mental health ward when they are their most vulnerable. They're calling for urgent action to ensure that more people are seen within 72 hours.
A maths expert has come up with a formula to predict exactly when children will have a tantrum during a long journey. Dr. James Hind from Nottingham Trent University says the average child will take 70 minutes to act up. Having siblings in the car will bring the tantrum forward by 10 minutes, but food should buy you an extra 15 minutes of peace. Are we there yet? That is a delight that still probably awaits you. Children in a car on a journey in the heat and trying to keep them amused. Though much easier nowadays because they've got all these devices.
Tablets and things, haven't they?
All those sort of things.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, I'm bad enough as it is. I went for a drive yesterday, not even a very long one. It was about 20 minutes, and I was having a tantrum by the end.
Were you?
It was because I couldn't parallel park. I'm not very good at parking.
Right.
And I literally threw my rattle out the pram, so I dread to think.
I have had cars in the past that apparently can park themselves. Now, I don't know this because I would never trust them. But you can press a button and literally it lines up. As long as you line it up parallel, it will then reverse into the space. But I've never been able to trust it.
You wouldn't trust it?
No.
I need one of those. I'd give it a go for you.
You need one of those.
I was at the British Motor Show last week, and they did a Guinness World Record for the tightest parallel park.
Wow.
And they'd literally just spin their car and throw it in sideways.
Yeah, put on a handbrake turn, right into that. Yeah.
That's it. And they did it.
They did it.
It was amazing. So I need to
where
take
was that
some
held?
lessons. Farnborough. I was there last week.
Sorry, I missed that.
What day was that then? I wasn't talking to you, was I? No, we missed that. I started at 9, I'm sorry, I let you down. But no, I could learn a lesson or two. But let us know what you make of that.
Yeah,
Does
if
food
you have
start
one of
off
those
as an-
devices in your car that you press the button and the car parks itself, does it work?
Doesn't work.
Does it ever go wrong? Let us know. We're going to take the break, and right after that, we're going to a wedding, as it turns out. Kinsey Schofield's going to be live from LA, bringing you all the details of Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck. They did it all official at the weekend. All to come after your Monday morning weather.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking rather cloudy with outbreaks of heavy rain moving eastwards across the country. A cloudy picture across southwest England with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. Feeling warm and humid with temperatures of around 20 Celsius. After a sunny morning across southeast England, cloud will begin to spill in from the west by lunchtime, perhaps a few showers arriving too. Wet across southern parts of Wales at midday. Outbreaks of rain could be heavy in places. Poor visibility over the hills and coast too. Cloudy for the Midlands this lunchtime with outbreaks of rain. The rain will be heavy at times with a risk of some surface water flooding places. Feeling humid but warm with light winds. It's a mixed picture this lunchtime across northeast England, often cloudy with showery rain in places, but a few brighter spells are possible too. Temperatures approaching 20 degrees Celsius with generally light winds. The mostly dry and bright weather continues across southern Scotland, cloud amounts tending to increase from the south. Temperatures will be around 15 Celsius. Rather cloudy across much of Northern Ireland with a risk of some rain in places, perhaps a few bright or sunny spells developing from time to time, most likely in the far east. Rain will continue to move east through the day with scattered heavy showers following. Warm and humid for many.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Read the Dockers, a lot of reaction coming in already on this. Karen saying everybody in the country's in the same boat at the moment. Everybody is struggling. What makes you, Real Dockers, whoever, think your case is more special than anyone else's? Well, I suppose the difference is they're in a position to do something about it. Lots of people can go on strike and it doesn't matter a darn bit of difference, but they know they have got a noose round the neck of the country on this one. Bring it on. Let the supermarket shelves be empty. We'll just have to adapt and eat less. I'd rather do that and give in to their greed. Well, Karen, that's where you're wrong. because it's going to stop everything. It's not just supermarkets you're talking about. It's just not cancelling Christmas. It's the most inane, ordinary things that because we've got this global economy, of course, and this is the whole problem. This is where it all becomes unstuck, that we rely on Ukraine, that we rely on China, that we rely on Russia, instead of doing stuff for ourselves. So it used to be we built our own cars. It used to be that, we provided our own food for the country. But now that is not the case. You just watch how this strike bites over the next 8 days or so.
And maybe this shows us we need to come back to basics and come back to homegrown, so we wouldn't have these issues. Archie says, I'm going to share these with you.
And this is a good point that you raise, Archie.
Yes, all that will happen with this Felixstowe strikes is the cost of everything in the shops will go up. This is the last thing we need. Pensioners can't join a union. What are we supposed to do?
Well,
it's a really good point.
Well, yes, but you're not going to do anything. They have the power, they have the control, and they probably have quite a good argument on their side, though it's not getting your sympathy. Con says, sacked a lot of them. Plenty of people out there would do that job. I'd make a lot of them go self-employed and see how hard it is to survive. Except the government don't like you if you're self-employed. They don't like that at all. And they want everybody employed elsewhere because it gets them more tax on all of this. Anyway, we could go on and on. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Thank you very much indeed for that. You can tweet at GB News, and the time is 26 minutes past 6.
Still to come on today's programme, our reporter Jeff Moody will be in your doorstep in the town of Swanage just before 7 o'clock, getting your views on the issues that matter to you.
And also in the next hour, 10 past 7 actually, the consumer champion Kate Hardcastle is going to be in the studio, and she's talking about a new scheme that could save you hundreds of pounds if you turn off your electrical appliances during peak hours. Now, I think, what a lot of nonsense.
I just imagine the clock turning 9 p.m. and everyone's dashing off to their washing machine.
To turn them on.
Yeah, you just see another surge.
How are they going to measure that? How are they going to actually measure that and do all that business?
We've got lots of questions.
And you're very lucky if you're at work, say during the hours between 5 and 8, or you just pop out to the cinema or something, or, because then you're not be in the house and then you'll be making money while you're out. Right, anyway, all that to do, you know what to do, you know how to join the discussion. Please do get in touch with us. Now, we're going to a wedding. We're talking about a wedding which took place yesterday. After secretly marrying in Las Vegas last month, Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck held a 3-day celebration at Ben's big pad. It's in Georgia. But it is big. It's worth millions.
Pad. It is worth millions. It's right for some, isn't it?
Who was on the guest list?
George Clooney, Matt Damon, and there were lots of other pictures as well. We're going to get the scoop now from Kinsey Schofield, who joins us live from Los Angeles. More good morning to you, Kinsey. How are you?
Oh, you guys keep making me nervous, tossing it to a wedding. I'm not ready, okay? I'm not ready. I'm not ready to go there yet.
You look wonderful. You look great. You can't see us, but we look like we're dressed for a wedding as well. I'm in white. Eamonn's in a lovely blue suit over here. But tell us everything that we need to know.
You always look angelic. You are just you are such a beautiful woman. Yeah, so everybody's talking about the Bennifer wedding. It happened right outside of Savannah, Georgia, on your right. Ben Affleck's $8 million estate. And we saw George Clooney there, Ben's BFF, Matt Damon. Suspiciously, his brother, Casey Affleck, was not there. So a lot of questions about that. Jennifer Garner, who we did kind of expect to see because she does have such a good relationship with Ben Affleck, was actually caught at a Sam's Club. So she was not there, but the kids were. They share 3 children together who participated in the festivities. None of J-Lo's ex-3 husbands showed up as well, which I thought was interesting. Jay Shetty, you're looking at Jay Shetty right there. He is an influencer, an Instagram influencer and a podcaster, and he actually officiated the wedding, which is kind of interesting. J-Lo wore a Ralph Lauren dress with a 20-foot train. All the guests were asked to wear white. On Friday, they had their dinner. Saturday was the official ceremony. And on Sunday, they had a barbecue. And yeah, I mean, it's the wedding everybody's talking about because, as you all know, they broke up for a little while, went their separate ways. They reunited. And so it is supposed to be the ultimate love story. Fingers crossed that it's happily ever after. And good luck to the couple.
I'm sure it is the ultimate love story. I'm sure it is. I can feel that and I can understand that. But ladies, what I don't understand is this business of inviting your exes
Yep.
or them even wanting to turn up. I was at a wedding on Saturday and people professing their love for each other, beautiful love. And you think, well, if you were the partner in between, it sort of meant
Yes.
that love didn't count. Why would you want to be there and be wounded by all of that? Don't get it at all.
I think maybe it's for the children. Also, when you're in Hollywood, that's a great PR story. You know, it would have been so great to have Jennifer Garner there because that would have made everybody look like happily ever after. It would have just been a good PR move. But I'm kind of with you. I'm not showing up to an ex's wedding. No thanks.
There is this question, isn't it, over at Jennifer Garner, and we're all saying, oh, she's really good about it, they've got a really good relationship. But you would have questions, I think, especially in Hollywood. And hasn't J-Lo taken Ben Affleck's surname as well? Has that happened? She's going to be Jennifer Affleck? Do we know that for sure?
I don't think she's going to be that professionally. And yeah, if I married somebody with a back tattoo like his, I don't think I would do that either.
I don't think you'd marry
I don't
someone
know
with a
if I've seen
back
that
tattoo
ugly
like
back tattoo. But yeah, so I think that she might have taken it privately, but I don't think she's ever going to be like J-Lo Affleck. I think she's always going to be J-Lo professionally.
What are you talking about, the tattoo? Sorry, I'm lost here. What's the tattoo? What's that?
Oh, Kinsey, you take this
Oh
one.
my gosh. Eamonn, Ben Affleck has a giant dragon bird thing on his back, and he was so embarrassed by it when the public saw it for the first time that he lied and said it was fake for a movie. And in reality, he has this giant, hideous back tattoo. And even J-Lo has made fun of it in interviews and said, I would have advised him against that.
Ellie's just popped it up on her computer screen for me. That's a lot of tattoo.
Yeah, it's a big turn off. I would be with you on that, Kinsey.
I would have. Whose idea was that? Who approved that?
Well, he can't see it anyway. It's on his back. He can't see it.
Maybe that explains why it's there in the first place. But it was opulent, wasn't it? It really was. I mean, Ben Affleck was in that white tuxedo, J-Lo in that fantastic dress. I mean, no expense was spared, was it? It was a real Hollywood wedding.
Absolutely. When you walked in, there was a giant sign that said Mr. and Mrs. Affleck. She had beautiful wooden signs created that were displayed throughout the venue. Things like love is patient, love is kind, love never fails. So this really was her ultimate dream wedding. I mean, she's had 5, but this really was, I think, her ultimate dream wedding. And, you were slowly seeing pictures pop up on social media from the guests. Like each had chocolate delivered to their rooms after the wedding that said sweet dreams from Ben and Jen. So, cute little details like that. And I'm sure we'll hear more throughout the week, but obviously very thought out and a happy couple.
Ellie's just delivered chocolate to me. Serious, absolutely true story this morning. That's how she tries to get on my good side this morning.
You're a smart girl.
Has she been married 5 times? 5 times?
Oh, well, no, she's been married 4 times, but this is her second wedding to Ben Affleck because she did have a wedding in July.
Gosh, well, I hope it works out for them.
Oh, me too.
And,
I hope it does.
I hope it is the big love story that it seems to be. I'm sure it is.
I hope so. I hope it's the happy ending. Kinsey, we love you. Thank you so much for bringing us all of that. That's Kinsey Schofield, our showbiz reporter in Los Angeles for us.
Thank you, Kinsey.
Jewish guest at that wedding as well. You could have done both this weekend.
Well, you see, the trouble is some people may have thought I was there. George Clooney was there.
Wow.
And we're never seen together
In the same room.
It's always... And sometimes I think, no, I'm not George. I'm only humble, simple.
Oh, look, I see it.
See?
I see
you can
it.
see that could be me.
Yeah.
That could be me, they're saying. And I do. The amount of times I have to say to people, no, it's only me. It's only me. Anyway, we're going to be going through the newspapers. Chris Akabusi, Emma Wolf, looking forward to that. Don't go away after this.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Look, we just want to say this Felixstowe strike really affected a lot of people. A lot of people got views on this, and we've got now to discuss
got
the
views in the
papers.
studio.
Yeah. Chris Akabusi and Emma Wolfe here, and you lot certainly are quite annoyed about strike fever. David saying it's intolerable. Emma, what would you say about it?
I just think that strikes affect a lot of working people who are just trying to go about their everyday business. This is a slightly different strike, but the transport strikes last week, the trains one day, then the tubes the next day, then the trains again. That is
and
people...
the buses.
Buses. Everybody else who's trying to do their jobs. Of course, what one is sympathetic to the people who are actually striking. They need better pay conditions and all of that.
You.
No, not as long as it doesn't affect me. It affects all working people, people who don't have unions, people who don't have secure pensions or even a negotiating
it's the moral
tool.
Of the story that you
Cleaners trying to get to work, taxi drivers who are sat in traffic all day.
What I'm trying to say is, if you were unionised, you might feel in a better position for your pay and conditions.
How is a cleaner meant to be unionised? How is an independent, a cabbie or an Uber driver meant to be... That they can't do their jobs. It's affecting them. They're on an hourly wage. They can't get to work.
But the people that are striking could actually say that they're actually doing it on behalf of those people too. Because actually what they're drawing to attention is that while fat cats are awarding themselves multi-million-pound bonuses, they cannot afford the increase of
But we all agree with that. But we all agree about the fat cats getting billions of pounds of bonuses.
Agreeing with it and doing something about it is a different thing.
Well, then we all need to come out on strike, and then we end up like the 1970s, and we have a general strike.
Yeah, well, OK, but that's what
a
they're
lot of
probably
people
doing.
are saying, that the aim of a lot of the unions are a general strike to bring down the government. But the thing is, and I can see this, Chris, represented by people are saying, right, inflation's at 10%. What if everybody asks for 10+%, which is the way it seems to be going? If you grant it to one sector, you've got to grant it to lots of people, but can the country afford that?
Well, can the country afford not to do that? At the moment, what we're saying is that there are a lot of people who, in October, are going to be faced with £5,000 per annum energy bills.
Yeah.
Well, how are they going to... If you're on 30 grand a year, 40 grand, how do you afford that sort of energy bill?
People are literally looking at whether they can heat the bedrooms that their children are in. It's absolutely frightening. I agree with everything Chris says, but it's words, it's empty words. I'm a freelancer. I don't get to demand 5-10% pay rise. I haven't had pay rises for years and years and years.
Emma, it's not empty words. They are actually doing something about it. They're putting their actions where their mouth is.
There's a campaign called, what can't pay, don't pay, that kind of thing. There's about 110,000 people who've joined it. We need the entire country to join that kind of action if we're going to affect change.
It brings us to another situation where there isn't action. There doesn't seem to be action on behalf of the government because we don't have a Prime Minister. You've gone to the front page of the Times, and it's this story, Tory voters still want Johnson to be leader. And I just thought, when are people going to wake up to this? I mean, we had yesterday on the radio Boris Johnson's sister interviewing Boris Johnson's father about Boris Johnson. Well, I mean, what grip does this man seem to have on some people?
And there's pictures on one of the papers of Boris Johnson having a lovely... it's the Daily front of the Daily Express. Boris Johnson in Greece having a lovely holiday with Carrie, looking very glamorous in a red swimsuit. Yeah, and we seem to have pretty much a zombie government at the moment. There's not a lot anyone can do because we don't really have a leader at all.
This ridiculous
so this story,
leadership contest just dragged out.
Dragging on and on and on.
Poor people like us who we're faced every morning with having to interview Ready for Rishik or whatever, what's it for Truss, whatever it is for her, whatever it is. And you know what? We don't care. Just pick one of them and get on with it.
Get on with it. Get your feet under the table and sort out the cost of living crisis. So the front of the Times is saying the Tory voters still, as you say, harking back. They want Johnson to be leader. They feel they have a sort of seller's remorse about the way that Boris Johnson was ousted. There's very little enthusiasm amongst Tory voters for either Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak. Around 49% of Tory supporters think that Boris Johnson should remain, and that is together more than the amount of support for Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss. So they're in a pretty dire position, and they do feel that there's a sense they've really badly damaged the reputation of the Tory party.
Well, and the they is the Tory MPs that actually, in the end, fell apart under the onslaught.
Capitulated.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I have those moments every day.
I was in there somewhere.
Capitalised, capitulated.
We should work together.
Absolutely.
End each other's sentences.
Thank you very much. Yeah. But they did. They capitulated under the onslaught of media, onslaught of negativity around Johnson, instigated by acolytes who didn't like him, who kept on feeding the rumour mill.
Come on.
It's what happened. It's what happened. It's exactly what happened.
It's part of it, but there was a reason why people are on his back. There's a reason why people are on Donald Trump's back, and there's a reason why people just don't think that decency and standards and morals should apply to certain people, and Johnson doesn't think they should apply to him.
No, but Eamonn, how many of us would be able to stave off that level of scrutiny day in, day out about every single minutiae of your life? Look, it's happened and it's over. We've got to get on with it. We need to move on. But what that paper is saying is that the members who liked Boris are remorseful for what the MPs did in getting rid of him.
So it was an MP decision, not a member's decision.
Correct.
And what's interesting is that this sense of remorse is across the blue wall and the red wall. So there's, they've done lots of opinion polls and focus groups, and people across the red and the blue wall are saying, you know what, we would actually prefer Boris Johnson as Prime Minister, as our leader. And he's a good performer. He's a natural performer. He's charismatic. I'm sure you've met him. I'm sure you've seen him speaking live. People adore him, whereas actually Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak are either wooden. I think we can all agree Liz Truss is not a natural performer. No. Rishi Sunak has not a lot of, there's not a huge amount of trust for him. He's not, and there's also a sense that he's not in touch with people. Whatever.
Just imagine the next 2 years.
Keir Starmer, who's that?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Spot the lesser spotted Keir Starmer popping up once in 6 months.
But then we've got to come to the question is, why are we so short on performers? Why are we so short?
Is this the best we can get? Are these the best? Are these people the best we can get? I look at the calibre of our politicians, and I really wonder: is this the best? Is this the brightest and best of this generation?
Emma, I was going to ask you about that because I was reading something this morning that basically was along those lines. It said there was such a Conservative majority in 2019 that there's never really been a challenge. As we just mentioned, there's never really been a challenge to the Tory party in the past 3 years, and that is why perhaps these candidates are so lacklustre. They just haven't needed to step up to the plate.
I think so. I think the lack of opposition has been a real problem, a lack of effective opposition. I mean, Gordon Brown stepping in the last few weeks has been like a relief, a sort of wonderful relief that somebody is standing up with some good ideas on the other side.
The main opposition that will stand up to the government now, it comes in the form of unions, surely. They are the people that seem to be forming the opposition.
And that's
right. So what I want to say is, though, maybe we're going away from this sort of charismatic type of politician to someone like Richie, who's a technocrat, who is going to be over the brief, or apparently, I'm not sure if it's true, but Liz Truss is supposed to be a disruptor. She gets on with the job and gets stuff done. So maybe we're going from more substance from all that froth.
Maybe. Front page of The Sun, Chris, Tyson's hell. His cousin is knifed to death. Boxing champ Tyson Fury spoke of his agony yesterday after his cousin was stabbed to death outside of bar. This was in Altrincham, which is part of Greater Manchester.
Yeah.
Nice area, nice part of the world. You wouldn't be thinking that knife crime would be there on the streets, but this lad was stabbed in the neck at 3 a.m. in the morning. Really, really scary.
Yeah, and look, I mean, my young daughter sort of 20 years ago was involved in an album which was about knife crime. And so knife crime has been over the United Kingdom for the last 20 years at least. And apparently what happens here is Rico... I forgot Rico's surname, but Rico is Tyson's cousin.
Rico Burton.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
He was watching the fight, Joshua versus Usyk, went to another pub, got into an altercation, decided to have what's called a straightener. This is a new language for me. A straightener is, let's go outside and talk about it. Well, we had those in our day, let's go outside and talk about it. In the old talking about it, he was overcoming the chap, and the chap has stabbed him in the neck.
Chris, scary, scary, scary.
It is.
Right? And I look at it and I think, surely we've got to be much more radical, less beating around the bush on this. For instance, every nightclub, every bar, whatever, on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, it doesn't matter what it is, there should be a scanner on the door coming in that if you've got a knife, you don't get in, or you're arrested, or they get the police, or whatever it happens to be. I mean, people may say, oh, what about my human rights? Well, my human right is to live, to be able to be at 3 o'clock in the morning, watch a boxing match on the telly without someone plunging a knife into my neck.
When I was a young man, you used to get doused down anyway. When you used to go to a club, you know, they do that. And it wasn't knives people took around then, it was the bottle. You know, so you'd get a glass and you'd get glass, wouldn't you? And OK, that might give you a little bit of blood, but you're not going to get life-threatening illness. I mean, look, I think you're right. I mean, I do think you're right. But it's not just in nightclubs, it's in the streets. I mean, that, you know, we talked about 2 weeks ago, Thomas O'Halloran.
That poor man.
That poor guy, a pensioner. Now, I don't know what led to that.
87 years.
87 years. So, you know, whether you are 87 or 17, you can be involved in this sort of...
But we can reduce it, and I do think you should be scanned going into pubs and nightclubs.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. Right.
OK, what have you got next?
Emma, we're talking about care home crisis in The Guardian. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, this is a really shocking report from The Guardian. This is over thousands of vulnerable people who've been left suffering with really terribly inadequate care. And this really comes down to severe staff shortages in up to 3/4 of care homes in England just don't have enough staff. So this is really vulnerable residents left in their rooms 24 hours a day, people being denied showers for more than a week, having assaults from fellow residents, and also being left soaking in their own urine.
And this comes down to the fact there's simply not enough staff, and we ask ourselves the question, are they being paid enough? Are they being valued enough? What do we do to actually say it is a really important job?
It is a really important job.
Well, they're not being paid enough.
They're not being paid enough.
Minimum wage, a lot of...
And I think this does go back to the last 2 years. If you remember, it was the care home staff who were ejected from their jobs if they didn't apply to the mandates or the legislation around vaccines. I'm not sure if we're allowed to say that. But so they were ejected, and many of them who weren't being paid anyway found that they were out on their ear, and they found actually they can get more money. You know,
doing anything.
Going to work for Amazon.
They're being paid shockingly low, and it's the people in society, if any of us who have elderly parents or who have disabled relatives or who know people in care homes, these are the people that matter. It's the same thing with the beginning of life and end of life care. Nurses are not valued. Midwives are not valued. They bring people into the world. The people who hold your father's hand when he's dying in hospital, those nurses, people in care homes, it's the most amazing job, and we are paying these people. And we don't value them. We don't care. We don't hold them up as heroes. They're not even, you know, they're not even prioritised in the way that the NHS, that we clapped for them, and they're valued as heroes. People working in care homes are really at the bottom of the heap, and I think they do some amazing, amazing work.
But yet we do idolise people who appear on reality shows, people who are influencers on
footballers,
social media,
you know, they're paid vast sums of money, and you can say what you like about money, indecently vast, and you say what you like about money, but it is the thing that people need and want, and you know that it does equate to value. If someone else is being paid hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, and you're getting £7, £8, £9 an hour, you know, and
doing
the most important intimate care, washing someone's body, helping an elderly person into the shower, you know, feeding a disabled person. I think this work is so beautiful and so important.
We need to turn it around. We need to put these people top of the tree.
And we need to value them when they're there and not give them ultimatums and kick them out of the job. We sacked so many of these care workers over the last 2 years because they didn't comply to the vaccine mandates.
Guys, I want to get your opinion here on this cost of living idea. So, Front Page Express, get paid to turn off your washing machine. See, this is another lot of crud, really. I don't believe this. I don't believe they can monitor this. No. I believe it's going to make us all think about, oh, yes, I should switch this off and that off, which I do all the time, because it does make me think. Should this light be on? Should this device be plugged in or whatever it is? But I actually don't believe that they can physically monitor whether your electric output or not, and then they give you a refund. I just don't understand.
No, I don't believe it. It's not going to happen. It's another one of these back-of-the-fag packet ideas. Apparently, this is the National Grid chief who want people with smart meters. So, again, it's not everybody. It's the people
get you on a smart meter.
With smart meters will be monitored between
which gets them more money.
Yeah, 5 to 8. And as you guys were saying earlier, some people need to need to come home from work and maybe put those appliances on. So it's the power-hungry things like washing machines, tumble dryers, which, by the way, we shouldn't be using because they're very power-hungry. But things like computer games, apparently very power-hungry as well. Turn those off between 5 to 8. I think it's a good thing in terms of making us think about turning things off, unplugging things, all of that, because we do use too much power, generally, as a nation.
Do you think about turning things off?
I do, because my dad used to say to me, why all... You know, he used to say to all of us, why are all the lights on? You bloody, you know, this is enough light to sink the Queen Mary or something.
He lived through the 70s when this was a real power.
He was born in 1927. He knew about the cost of whatever it was, the cost of plugging something in.
Do you think about turning things off, Miss Ellie?
No, I'm very bad. And I worry about leaving my straighteners on and my curlers on all the time. I'm very bad. What about you, Chris?
No, so I turn the lights off and I close the doors, but I leave all my plugs in, whether appliance is in or not. So the plug will be there, ready for when I come and I go, doom, 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 and I stick it all on. I would never, ever think of taking out all the plugs because my appliance is not there.
Would you not turn it off at the socket?
No.
I would turn it off at the socket. I wouldn't take the plug out. I'd just turn... My phone charger, I'll turn it off at the socket if I'm not charging it.
Yeah, no, it never says turn off the lights when I go out, because, of course, I don't need the light if no one's in there. But the idea that I'm going to turn off this and then...
Sockets and appliances,
Well, here, I hate to tell you, I'm about to pull your plug. right now. Chris and Emma, they're going to be back in 40 minutes' time. And right now, it's time for On Your Doorstep.
And as always, we're knocking on your doors to find out what matters to you. And today, Jeff Moody is in beautiful Swanage in Dorset. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, and Swanage certainly is beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful seaside towns in the whole country. It's in the Isle of Purbeck, down on the sort of the very south tip of Dorset. The Jurassic coastline runs right along the stretch of sea around here. Absolutely beautiful. It's a gorgeous little high street, and I found this shop that I think is going to make me very poor by the end of this morning. It's got lots of interesting things, so I've managed to persuade them to open up and show us what they've got. So let's head inside and see if we can find Ben. Shop. Good morning, Ben. Hello to you. Hi. Morning, You're live on GB News.
Hello. Yeah. Good morning, everybody.
Going? Good morning. What sort of shop do you sell? What sort of stuff do you sell here?
What kind of stuff to sell? Well, we like to call ourselves a fair trade ethnic clothing and gift shop. So we have a real eclectic mix of things. As you can see, you know, it's fun. It's right, and we cater for ages 8 to 80.
8 to 80?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Show us around then. What have you got? What can we see? So there's T-shirts over here. Very nice. Alcohol, because no great story starts with a salad. Yeah, right. Yeah, I like that. No great story starts with a salad.
got these here. We've got purses. We've got some jackets down here. Got all kinds of nice things.
And show us some of these posters and signs.
Quite don't.
Bang head here for stress reduction. How's it been going with COVID? Show us through here as well.
Yeah, come on.
So how was it through COVID for you guys?
It was quite tough, you know. As it was, I think, for everybody, but we've, oh, so that's right, it's fine, sorry, hello. Yeah, anyway, yeah, it was tough for us, but we kept all of our staff on. But the moment we opened up again, it was busy. It really was busy. And I would say probably this year has probably been our busiest year in 20 years.
Do you foresee this staying busy? Because a shop like this sells a lot of things that people really want, but not much that people need.
Yeah,
do you foresee a problem going forward as this cost of living crisis bites?
Maybe, yeah. But I mean, we've always evolved and changed. I mean, we've always sold the same type of stuff, but we're constantly moving on and what's the word?
Constantly moving on.
Tweaking. Yeah, that's it. That's right, yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for showing us around, Ben. We're going to be heading to a steam train a little bit later on this morning, so join us again for that later.
Right, tell us what you're doing, Jeff. So what have you got on the agenda for people so that we can see? What have you got lined up?
So we're going to speak to the English Stamp Company, which makes really rare and unusual stamps. That's just up the road. So we're doing that next. And then in an hour's time, an hour after that, we're hoping to go on a steam train. There's the most amazing steam train that goes from Swanage up to the magnificent Corfe Castle, which was this gorgeous old castle that was destroyed during the Civil War. So we're hoping to go on a little bit of a journey on a steam train later as well.
Oh, Jeff, you've got a wonderful morning lined up. We're very jealous here. We need to be heading down to Swanage, I think. Swanage?
Does Swanage have a football team,
Swanage,
Jeff?
yeah.
Not that I'm aware of, but you see,
Let me ask, does Swanage have a football team?
Good question.
Yeah. None of us know, do we?
We think it does, Eamonn. Not too much of a football
they're not
fan.
very successful if they do have one. But you see, I know, Jeff, I know everywhere in the land that has a football team, I'm aware of that town, right? I'm absolutely aware of that. And if they're not part of the classified football results, don't know where they are. So don't know anything about Swanage. We're looking to you to tell us all about that today. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Leave it there. Have you been?
No. Have you?
No.
I've been to Lyme Regis. I don't know. Is that very far away? Don't know, but that was stunning.
Well, everybody says...
Jurassic Coast. I know it's Jurassic
Yeah,
Coast.
people are saying it's lovely and I haven't been...
We should take a trip.
To there. We should take a trip.
Take GB News down there.
Maybe on this little train that he has lined up.
So stay tuned for that, because that's going to be great, isn't it? He's got lots of lovely things lined up.
And after the break, we're going to be talking about strikes. We're going to be talking about a proposed new scheme that could save you hundreds on your energy bills this winter, if you can believe what you're being told. Believe what you're being told with the weather forecast. Here it is for the day ahead.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking rather cloudy with outbreaks of heavy rain moving eastwards across the country. A cloudy picture across southwest England with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. Feeling warm and humid with temperatures of around 20 Celsius. After a sunny morning across southeast England, cloud will begin to spill in from the west by lunchtime, perhaps a few showers arriving too. Wet across southern parts of Wales at midday. Outbreaks of rain could be heavy in places. Poor visibility over the hills and coast too. Cloudy for the Midlands this lunchtime with outbreaks of rain. The rain will be heavy at times with a risk of some surface water flooding places. Feeling humid but warm with light winds. It's a mixed picture this lunchtime across northeast England. Often cloudy with showery rain in places, but a few brighter spells are possible too. Temperatures approaching 20 degrees Celsius with generally light winds. The mostly dry and bright weather continues across southern Scotland, cloud amounts tending to increase from the south. Temperatures will be around 15 Celsius. Rather cloudy across much of Northern Ireland with a risk of some rain in places, perhaps a few bright or sunny spells developing from time to time, most likely in the far east. Rain will continue to move east through the day with scattered heavy showers following. Warm and humid for many.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A new week of strikes begins at the UK's biggest port, threatening Britain with empty supermarket shelves.
Hello there, very good morning to you. Just after 7 o'clock. It's Monday, the 22nd of August. You're tuned in to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Ellie Costello. Thank you for your company.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. As we're just saying, workers at the UK's biggest port, Felixstowe, have gone on strike for the first time in 30 years in a dispute over pay. Dock workers are threatening to grind Britain's supply chains to a halt.
National Grid chiefs have proposed a plan that would pay people to avoid using energy-intensive appliances at peak hours come winter. Under the scheme, customers could be paid to not wash clothes or dishes between the hours of 5 and 8 p.m.
And we'll be on your doorstep in the Jurassic coast town of Swanage in Dorset, hearing from you about the issues that matter.
And mattering to you, strikes. You're waking up to news today of a strike at the port of Felixstowe. Dockers on strike there for the next 8 days, and you don't like it. Tell us why, Ellie.
Yeah, lots of you have been getting in touch on this one. Dave says, let them strike at Felixstowe. We can encourage people to buy British. Bring it on. David says the strike fever...
Just stop there. What is made in Britain anymore? I mean, there's financial markets and all sorts of things. You can buy yourself an insurance policy, but what else can you buy? Can you really encourage people?
Well, if you grow British, then you can buy British. You know, your veg and your fruit.
No, but my point is, if you've decimated farms, if you've decimated industry throughout the whole country, if you rely just on financial services, what have we got to flog? We can't support ourselves. We are reliant on a world capitalist economy where we import everything. We have nobody but ourselves to blame and our governments to blame on this. So we're in this mess. What can we do about it? And make no doubt about it, the Felixstowe strike is very, very important. You're having your say. We're going to talk about that next.
Yes, our top story is that dock workers at the UK's biggest container port have begun a new week of strikes, the first of its kind in 30 years.
OK, 1,900 members of the Unite Union walked out, and this is for 8 days after rejecting a 7% pay offer from the Felixstowe Dock and Railway Company.
Well, Felixstowe handles nearly half of all container ships entering the UK, meaning disruption could prove catastrophic for the country's supply chains, with warnings of empty supermarket shelves in the run-up to Christmas.
I'd say that's the least of our worries. But anyway, joining us now, Senior Political Campaign Director Peter Barnes with his take on this. This is a serious strike, Peter. I don't know if it's really got home to people, but we're talking about everything on the supply chain. We're talking about if you're a builder, if you're expecting components for your factory to assemble them in the UK. We did talk about food and drink and simple things as well. 50%, half of all containers coming into this country come through that port.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. This is probably one of the most significant strikes this country's seen. I know this is in 30 years, but I think they probably, I think even longer than that. What's really important to understand about this is, as you say, it's every single industry will be affected by this strike. It's not just being minorly inconvenienced because of trains or you're not being able to travel or something like that. This is literally everything. One thing that's not being spoken about during this entire thing is big international companies might be able to weather this storm. There's a lot of smaller companies that are also being hit by this strike. You know, they're relying on these components and parts for their companies, and they live bread line to bread line, basically. So,
yeah. And if you're someone who's, say, renovating your house or building a house or putting an extension onto your house or whatever it is, think of the builders who are employed to do all of that. They won't be able to get pipes, they won't be able to get tiles, they won't be able to get the most mundane, ordinary of things. And the supply chain was bad up until now. It's going to get a lot worse.
Oh, it's going to be probably the worst we've ever seen it. It was, like you said, significantly bad not so long ago, and we thought it was just about trying to get back on its feet. We were starting to see a little bit of easing off on it, but this strike will really hit home, and it will put so much pressure on the government and whoever becomes the new Prime Minister.
But here's the problem, and we've all been sitting discussing this today. Everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's hit by 10.1% inflation. And I suppose those who shout loudest are going to be listened to, and those who've got the most amount of influence, those who can turn the taps off, are in the strongest position. Now, we were talking about care home workers and how you can't attract them. But you know what? No one's going to care at the end of the day. They care about if the economy is hit.
Yeah, I think and it's one of those old saying in politics, everything is local. So the minute that it affects you, that's when you suddenly care about it. What's really important to notice when we talk about who shouts the loudest is if we actually look at trade unions in the UK, they've had a bit of an ebb and flow of power and relevance over the last couple of years. They kind of hit their kind of recent peak under Jeremy Corbyn, and thanks to a little bit more of a more militant left-wing politics. But if we look at membership of trade unions, overall it's dropped by 50%. But the thing is always to remember is that if we look at public sector workers, the 50% of those are also unionised. They're still incredibly powerful within some of the most important sectors in our economy, which tends to be education, transport and the healthcare system. You know, unless the government and these trade unions really sit down around a table, everybody's in for a world of hurt.
I mean, the question is, what is reasonable? What is a reasonable pay offer on the table? I mean, these workers at Felixstowe have already been offered 7%, 8%. I mean, doctors and dentists this year have been offered 4.5%, and this is inflation at 10.1%. I mean, they're taking a real terms pay cut. So how reasonable is it for these dockyard workers at Felixstowe to be striking over 8%? It's almost double what our doctors and dentists are getting.
They don't have to be reasonable. They just have to have power.
But in terms of where they have to meet, it's going to have to be reasonable on both sides.
Well, they're saying, Peter, that the profits by the company that runs Felixstowe Docks have been immense. The dividends they've paid out have been immense, and they don't think that they are being unreasonable with what they're asking for in relation to their productivity.
Yeah, that's very true. The way that these situations tend to work out is it becomes a bit of a war of words right at the beginning there. So they will say they'll think they're completely reasonable, and then they will. I do expect them to climb down. How much they'll climb down, I don't really know yet. That'll depend how much damage is really done by the end of this strike. But it will be fascinating to watch how this plays out because of the impact it'll have on everybody's pockets.
Peter, want to break off from you, want to bring in a GB News viewer and listener. We go to Swansea. And there is Paul Anthony for us this morning. Paul, you're 55 years of age, you're self-employed. what do you think about what is going on in terms of strikes around the country? Because everybody wants more. Everybody wants more. But what way do you see the reality of all of this?
Well, I don't agree with the strikes. I think all the unions are going to do is deepen and prolong the cost of living crisis. It's not going to position the UK well for the future when we face the challenges of having left the EU. And I just think in the end that if the unions get their demands met, that companies are just going to have to look for savings longer term to remain competitive, which is only going to mean redundancies. I think the unions are capitalising on a bit of a void that's been left by the government at the moment, because everybody's concerned about the cost of living, and the unions are stepping in and trying to achieve what I think is a very unreasonable deal for their members, because this hopefully is just a short-term blip in inflation. And when they talk about the profits that some of these companies are making, again, that's likely to be short-term. So why don't, for example, the unions suggest a profit sharing so that we can get away from this risk?
So Paul, you're basically saying all very unfortunate, but asking for 10% pay rise ain't going to solve the problem, because we're all going to pay for it in the end. You believe, and your mentality as someone who is self-employed is, suck it up for a bit. We've all got to do our bit. We've all got to accept that our standard of living isn't going to be what it used to be. How popular would that view be in all reality, though, do you think? And what is it you do? When you say you're self-employed, Paul, what is it you do?
Well, I'm a landlord, so I've got a small rental portfolio, but I used to be a project manager as well as a career. Of course, it's going to be unpopular, and of course, I do expect the government to step and address the concerns that people have in the short term, particularly over the cost of energy. But I don't think the solution is just to drive everybody's wages up, because if you want to pay £20 for a cup of coffee, pay a barista £20 an hour. But that's not going to help anybody, and it's certainly not going to help the poorest.
I was speaking to an officer from Unite the Union earlier, Robert Morton, and he was saying that they haven't taken this action lightly. They haven't had a strike in over 30 years, and they have to do something, he says, to tackle the fat cats at the top of the chain that are making millions of pounds. Do you think that's reasonable?
There's obviously an issue there, because the ratio of pay at the boardroom level compared to the worker level is obviously becoming slightly obscene. So there's obviously an issue there, but I don't think you fix that by creating fat mice. If we drive our cost base up, it's just going to make the UK less competitive, and the cost of living is going to become a permanent feature. And at the end of the day, I think we'll have a collective responsibility to get the inflation target back down to 2%, which is obviously the Bank of England's target.
Well, Paul, let's bring back Peter Barnes in all of this, our political commentator on of this. Paul seems to be talking a lot of sense, I would have thought there.
Yeah, 100%. There's very little Paul said that I don't disagree with. One thing I think he's hit the nail on the head there is really about how Unite have gone about this. And I think he's perfectly right to say that, yeah, there is a problem between boardroom pay and kind of workers' pay. But he's right to say that you don't really fix this problem by going on strike. It's not really that kind of solution. One of the biggest problems I think the trade unions have is they're kind of still fighting for relevance. And he's right that they're filling in a void of where there's a big political vacuum, because like we said, we're kind of living through a zombie government at the minute as the never-ending Conservative Party contest goes on. The trade unions have really hit home there and found a real niche and have really dug in, and I do expect there significantly more strikes to probably continue into next year.
Paul, I mean, Peter's talking about this political void that exists because we've got this never-ending, seemingly Conservative leadership battle going on. Do you think that's been a bit of an own goal by the Conservative Party? And if so, what would you say to them?
Well, it's not been a smart move, has it? Because everybody's sitting through the summer now feeling quite anxious about their bills. They just need to get into post now, if you like, get get the Prime Minister sorted and start taking some serious action. I honestly don't know what the solution is, because I don't think throwing money at the problem is particularly helping, because on the one side you've got the government who could throw money at it, and on the other side you've got the unions trying to drive up wages. So neither of it is good for inflation. I will add as well that I find the Bank of England's response rather confusing. Putting interest rates up when you've got a supply side inflation effect isn't particularly going to help, and all it's going to do is worry everybody that's got heavy debts and a mortgage.
Peter, what is the answer to this? I mean, the favourite, the front runner, Liz Truss, is saying she's going to hit the ground running in September and tackle this summer of strikes. What's the answer? I think one thing that people really need to understand is there isn't a kind of one policy fits all here. What we really need is a breadth of policy and a depth of policy. Anything that can kind of help save people money in any way whatsoever should be on the table and should be seriously discussed. What I don't really like these kind of, if we just have one giant policy, then that's it. Yeah. The problem's fixed, but the problem is so complicated, and we need short-term solutions, we need long-term solutions, we need medium-term solutions, we need everything.
We just need some sort of solution. We need somebody back in government to be actually doing something, because we've got this situation, Peter, that people are looking and they're saying those that shout loudest will get the pay settlement that they want. If they're represented by a union, they'll probably get the pay settlement they want or pretty close to it. That leaves everybody else who's not represented by a union. The country is in disarray. People feel really hard done by, and they want action. They want action now. Yeah, 100%. The government needs to get to grips with this pretty much from day one, if not minute one. One thing that I'm very scared about is what used to be called the Just About Managing group. Yes. Those people, I think, have been criminally ignored in this entire conversation. So we keep focusing on the very rich and how, and then we focus on the very poor and everybody. But there's this huge chunk of people in the middle that have just been completely ignored, and I think that's wrong. And my biggest fear is that those people start to backslide economically, and then that becomes working poor, and then that sort of becomes a scary
big
problem. Peter, thanks for your analysis. Paul, lovely to have you on board. Thanks for your company today. Paul Anthony there, GB News viewer and listener, who joined us from Swansea in South Wales.
Yeah, and do let us know what you make of that conversation. Very interesting thoughts from both guests there. gbviews@gbnews.uk. OK, let's bring you up to date with everything else that's going on today.
Rishi Sunak says Liz Truss's economic plans would plunge the economy into an inflation spiral if she becomes PM. His campaign's warning that her planned 50 billion tax cuts, combined with providing cost of living support, would place public finances into what he says would be serious jeopardy.
Former Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone is due to appear in court this morning over an alleged failure to declare £400 million of overseas assets to the government. He faces a charge of fraud by false representation between 2013 and 2016.
Doctors will start prescribing walking and cycling as part of a nationwide trial to improve mental and physical well-being. Nearly £13 million has been given to 11 local authorities to fund pilot social prescriptions like adult cycling, training, walking groups and free bike loans. It's part of the government's gear change plan, which aims to reduce GP appointments and reliance on medication. Your views, very, very welcome. gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @gbnews.
A pilot scheme by the National Grid this winter could enable Brits to be paid to turn off their washing machine and appliances in a bid to stop winter blackouts.
Now, if it goes ahead, it means people could also save hundreds on soaring energy bills. Could it work? How could it work? Let's go to consumer and retail expert Kate Hardcastle with all of this. It's making front page headlines today, Kate. Get paid to turn off your washing machine, screams the headline. What do you think?
Well, it makes sense it's on the front page, Eamonn, because it's a good, positive story in the fact that people can actually start to take some control if they have a smart meter, if this goes ahead. And with the months and months of doom and gloom around the cost of energy rising and rising, we know that those figures are going to carry on going up. It's ideal to hear how there are some positive conversations being brought to the table. Now, just to reiterate, This is a suggestion. There was a trial on this scheme from Octopus Energy earlier in the year, and there is still no definition of how much those rebates might be worth. But the idea is that if we take the pressure off the national grid at peak times, you might be rebated and rewarded as a customer to help to ensure that there are no blackouts, and also to help, therefore, towards your energy costs.
Kate, I'm very interested in how this is going to work because, if you're not supposed to use it between 5 and 8, would we not see a peak at, say, 9 p.m., like you would back in the day with X Factor in the ad breaks? You'd see everybody going on and switching on their kettle and making a cup of tea. Is that not something that we would see, just people just using the same energy but later, and there'd be a peak just later on in the day?
It makes sense you ask that, and I think when this is proposed to Ofgem and actually the rules and regulations of it come in, there's going to have to be some well thought out conversation about where those peaks and troughs are and how that usage might happen. But this is all dependent again on smart meter ownage, which is the communication method between your meter and your energy supplier. So there'll be certainly some two-way communications in terms of when they need you to use your energy. If you think about the devices in our homes, so many of us still doing so much, Ali, that actually is driving up the bills, and there's some measures we can take right here, right now that would make a difference. The standby on your appliances is huge when it adds up over the year to how much we pay on our energy bills. And those hungry appliances like tumble drying can really make a difference if you try and use them less through the week, making sure you fill the washing machine and tumble dryer to its capacity load to make sure that you're not using them excessively, same with the dishwasher too. So I think there are also some things we in the meantime can do, and it serves as a reminder to make sure that we are consuming our energy in the most appropriate way.
Remember the days when people used to do a wash their clothes and then use an old-fashioned thing called a washing line in the backyard or the back garden.
Clothes wash.
Or whatever, yeah, clothesline.
I'm incredibly proud of my washing line, Eamonn. We've just been talking about school uniforms and just how much they cost. And, where you're meant to have your gossip in your conversation if you're not hanging something out on the washing line. But you've got to try and think about conserving your own energy. It would be great if schemes like this come in and rebate the consumer back. We want to hear about positive conversation, sensible measures that are going to help consumers who are incredibly pressurised. Just to look at those energy figures again, we're talking about caps of £3,576 suggested by October, by January £4,799, and by April next year potentially £6,089. So when we talk about this on a relatively weekly basis, it's for good reason. So if you can change some habits right now that are going to make it easier, whether you get this scheme or not, please do. You do have energy hungry devices in your home, and using them differently, going back to the methods of your nan, is probably a really good idea right now.
And Kate, do you think this is the way that the conversation is going now? I mean, even here this morning in the studio, we're talking about growing our own, going back to basics. I mean, switching off our appliances, being mindful of the energy that we use. I mean, is this the way that we're going to have to...
We've got too lazy, we've got everything's too convenient. I mean, I remember...
Do we need an attitude change?
I remember in the mid-60s, my mum used to have a thing called a mangle, where actually you did your wash and then you put it... Do you know what a mangle is?
I've seen those, yeah.
Yes.
Like in Ireland.
So you put it through, it's like a pastry sort of thing, and it squeezes the water out, and then you use the washing line, as we were saying there. So, Kate, I suppose the point we're trying to make here is a tumble dryer, whether we realise it or not, is an incredibly energy-using device. It's very, very expensive to use. We're just not aware of it because actually it's very, very convenient.
It's draining on the energy, and you're absolutely right. But did you know this? Some fabrics can actually be challenged by the use of a tumble dryer, can bobble easily, and therefore you don't even get as much lasting life out of those garments, particularly some of the man-made textiles. So it really does make sense to know what techniques to use and read the care labels. Doing low, cool washes if you possibly can, again, always makes a difference because you're not heating up that water. It just pays the dividend to take time to read into some of these techniques. And Ellie, to go back to your question, well, first and foremost, if you do care about the environment, a lot of these measures are great for sustainability. There's a huge charge in terms of the re-commerce, recycle market, which is fantastic. The idea of make, do, amend is not in any way going away. And I actually feel pleased that we're actually bringing in some of those common sense techniques that we've needed for a long time that hopefully will be habit forming and last us beyond this crisis.
Well, Kate, I'd love if you hang with us. There mightn't be anything to say, but there may well be, as we talk to Labour Shadow Minister for Levelling Up. So there's energy-saving policies that he's going to talk about now. So, Kate, if you hang on there, we'll come back to you, because Labour has launched an attack on the Conservative leadership candidates and challenging them to back plans to insulate our houses. This is all very well and good. This costs a lot of money. But overall, they say it could save you as a family, generally, all of us collectively, £11 billion in energy bills. OK, so here is Alex Norris. Alex is the Shadow Minister for Levelling Up and the Future of the Union. Alex, good morning to you. Good to have you on board. What we're really saying, Alex, is we've heard all of this before, and there's no doubt, yes, in an ideal world, this would have to be done. But goodness me, I know you're talking about saving 11 billion, but who pays for all of this?
Well, Eamonn, I mean, first of all, we have to recognise this is a moment of extraordinary national pressure. Families up and down the country, people up and down the country are really struggling. I think what they expect to see from their leaders is decisive action, and that's what we've offered today. Of course, this comes with a cost. We've put out a fully funded package that covers freezing the energy price cap, as Keir Starmer committed last week, and also to cover this announcement. So, of course, these things come with a cost. We're not chucking money around and, that doesn't exist, but we think people need action now, and that's what we're offering.
And you don't think that Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss have come up with anything as good as what you say is a winning warm homes plan?
Well, no, because they haven't offered one at all. The reality is that you watch the conversations being had in this leadership contest. Well, they're very different to the conversations that are being had in households up and down the country, where people are worrying about making their bills stack up. So we're offering the possibility of 1.9 million homes being insulated quickly, saving that money, as you say, Eamonn. Well, Rishi Sunak's been blocking policies like that in the Treasury. We understand, if you read the same newspapers I do, that it's likely to be Kwasi Kwarteng as the next Chancellor. Well, he, as in his previous role, completely botched the previous inflation scheme. So, they have a very poor track record. But frankly, I don't think my constituents, I don't think perhaps even GB News viewers particularly care about that now. They want to know what a politician's going to do to get this tackled. We're offering something here that would make a really significant difference, and that's why we think the government should accept it.
Well,
yeah, and Alex, it is interesting. As I'm listening to you, I mean, I'm full of frustration. I think your constituents will be full of frustration as well. Nobody's doing anything. Boris Johnson's on his holidays. He's history. These two between them, it's all over. Don't even know why we're having a contest. Everybody knows Liz Truss is going to win it. What a complete and utter waste of time, and how this really is harming people all around the country. How big is your frustration on all of this?
It's huge. If we had our way, we would be, rather than me talking today from home in Nottingham, we would be in Parliament getting these things legislated for so they can get to work straight away. I'm angry, of course I am, as I can tell you are, Eamonn, but what I am more is concerned for people in my community and across the country who are really scared about their ability to keep their heating on and to feed their family. And I think we need to meet that with the same level of action. We're offering that, and it's very frustrating to see that the supposed government of the day don't want to.
Right, let me bring you down the controversial line of, you talk about feeding your family there. You've got workers all around the country. You've got postal workers. You've got rail workers. We now have dockers in Felixstowe who worry about feeding their family, who basically say, right, inflation's over 10%. We want a pay rise to deal with that. All very well and good, all very admirable. Who wouldn't like a 10% pay rise? But what do you think about how they're going about this? I mean, they've a very strong hand. They've got a noose around the neck of the country, really, because Felixstowe is so important. Half of all container ships that supply this country come through that port. We are looking at a summer, an autumn, a winter of discontent. What would you say in reply to these strikes aren't going to go away?
Well, I think, this is part of the same conversation, Eamonn, that we've just had. The reality is that set against, extraordinary inflation, workers up and down the country looking at their pay packets and thinking that it just doesn't work for them, and that's leading us to these difficult situations. Felixstowe is an interesting case in that, again, staff are looking and they're thinking of all the work they've done in the pandemic, the success they've contributed to at Felixstowe, the significant profits being made at Felixstowe, which have been considerable in recent years, and thinking that they're not getting their fair part of that. I know that, that striking won't be something that they've looked at lightly. I believe they haven't done so since the late 80s at Felixstowe. So this is a significant moment. I think what we would want to see, as your viewers would want to see, is that cool-headed negotiation round the table and a resolution between management and staff that works for all parties and gets the freight moving again.
I mean, many of the strikers have said that they don't feel backed by Labour. Labour's lost 100,000 members in 2021 alone. Do you think you offer an effective opposition?
Yeah, well, first of all, the membership figures tend to fall in the years following a leadership contest. That's just the kind of the natural ebb and flow of it. We, of course, the clue's in the name, we're the Labour Party, we're the party of working people. But we do have to balance that sometimes, which might mean that sometimes we disappoint some of our colleagues. However, what we're very clear about is that these staff, in this industry and in others, deserve pay rises that take into understanding just how hard things are for people. So sometimes, as I say, we might not be flavour of the month, but I think we're doing the right things in the interests of those workers and in the country, and that's why we've called for what we've called for.
Would you call for what Alex Norris is calling for there as well? Let us know. Get involved in the conversation. Email us or tweet us as well. Alex, appreciate your time. Alex Norris is the Shadow Minister for Levelling Up and the Future of the Union and Elections. Thank you very much indeed. Paul Coyte on the ball with the sport after this.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
OK, 32 minutes past 7.
Yep, still lots to come on today's programme, including our reporter Jeff Moody. He'll be on your doorstep in the Jurassic coast town of Swanage just before 8 o'clock, speaking to people there about the issues that matter to them.
Yeah, including their football team. Yeah, because...
Oh, yeah.
And they do have one.
What is the football team?
Swanage Town and Hurston Football Club play at Days Park. I'm not looking at this, by the way. And beat Portland United Reserves 2-1 in the Dorset Premier League over the weekend.
In the Dorset Premier League?
In the Dorset Premier League, but it was Portland United Reserves.
Yes.
I don't know what happened to the first team.
All right, OK.
But, you know, it's not a bad result.
Often if a town doesn't have a football team, you don't know a lot about it. I don't know a lot about Swanage, but apparently it's the place to go.
On the money, though, Paul.
Yeah.
Right? See that? Just
Do
no
my best.
hesitation.
On the
Smooth
money.
stuff.
8, so we're talking about the fuel crisis and energy costs continue to skyrocket. We're going to be meeting a chip shop owner who might have to close his doors because of the energy bill. Think of what you have to pay to keep one of those big fat fryers go.
Yeah, oil, fish, it's all going up, isn't
Do you
it?
support your fish and chip industry?
Of course.
Yeah.
Love fish and chips, do you?
Well, absolutely. I have had
On a Friday?
I've had 2 in the past week.
You're doing your bit.
Yeah,
for the economy.
Doing my bit. OK, you know what to do. Get involved in the conversation. Here's Paul with the sport. Right. So let's start with the back pages. Man City boss Pep Guardiola refuses to criticise Kieran Trippier over a red card decision. So he got a red card, then it was rescinded. City drew 3-3 with Newcastle. In the Times, Thomas Tuchel slammed his Chelsea players for gifting Leeds, he said. A 3-0 victory at Ellen Road. I just thought it was a great Leeds performance, personally. Let's look at the Mail. Anthony Joshua. Well, he says he let himself down. Real extraordinary behaviour in the immediate aftermath of his defeat to Alexander Usyk at the weekend. So, Paul, where do you want to begin with that?
Shall we start with Leeds? You just hit the nail on the head. I thought Leeds were brilliant.
And Chelsea weren't.
And they weren't. It's as simple as that. Chelsea were very good against Spurs last weekend, went up to Ellen Road. And the thing is, what I'm seeing about football at the moment is that the difference is, I know it sounds really simple and pretty obvious, that if you've got players that are putting the effort in, they're playing a high press, they're working hard, they're going in for every tackle, they're not swanning around, and it makes a difference. And you've got teams like Brentford did it with United last week, and Leeds were brilliant against Chelsea.
And Brighton were brilliant against us at Old Trafford as well. And I agree with you, and I speak as a Manchester United supporter. Everybody's going, oh, where did it go wrong for United? Well, sometimes just Brighton were the better team. Brentford were clearly the better team as well. And in this case, Leeds at 3-0, you can't really argue with that.
Absolutely.
1-0 you might, 2-1 you might, but 3-0.
You can't argue with 3-0. Chelsea, there was Mendy gave the ball away. It was simple, and then and they had Koulibaly sent off as well. But if we look at the result, it doesn't lie. Leeds 3, Chelsea 0. They deserved it. They weren't lucky, and Chelsea should walk away and just go, you know what, we've beaten by the better team on the day.
Man City scraped a draw with Newcastle. Kieran Trippier was in controversy because of tripping, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was the Trippier. Basically, you've got Kevin De Bruyne going through. Kieran Trippier is thinking, right, I've got to stop him one way or another. So what he does, I don't think I've seen a foul like it. It was almost like, I'm not going to kick him, but I'm going to bring him down. So he just sort of lifted his foot up just to trip him over without trying to hurt him. Instant red card. Then he wouldn't get off the... Well, I say, he was standing on the pitch and he was thinking, well, it shouldn't be a red card. So this went to VAR and then came back and it was rescinded. So it was like, well, you know what? Have another look at it. Referee looked at it and said, OK, we'll call it a yellow. So it's interesting because the thing is he didn't set out to injure De Bruyne. De Bruyne was very unhappy about it because it was a clear chance. But it was almost like a foul. I'm going to knock you over, but I'm going to do it without hurting you. Okay. So it was an interesting foul. But, I think probably yellow. Some people say red. I don't think anybody could argue too much either way.
De Bruyne, a great player.
Oh, he's a terrific player.
Debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farrow.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Listeners and viewers, welcome back. It's Eamonn and Ellie here. It's breakfast on GB News.
Yep, it's time to go through the papers now with Olympian Chris Akabusi and writer and journalist Emma Wolfe. We're talking a lot about the strikes and Felixstowe. I'm sure we're going to come back to that later on in the morning. We're looking at some different stories now. Chris, should we start with you and the front of the Mail? New blood test described as the holy grail in the fight against cancer.
Yeah.
A bit more.
Yes, so right now there's this new blood test called the Gallery test, which helps pick up strands of DNA and will show exactly where the cancer lies. And the idea is 140,000 people on the trial at the moment, and the idea is that if you go and you take this test, that you get this early warning and therefore can be treated. And the idea, they think that about 10% have a 10% success rate of preventing further cancers, and we may be able to detect 50 types of cancers in early stages.
Thank goodness. I hate cancer. I hate the sound of it. I hate the word. I have a description for it, you know, which I can't say on television, but it is a hateful.
Well, and it's indiscriminate, and at any age group, you know, young people in their 30s.
Children,
people looking forward to a phenomenal retirement, get into their 60s and boom, they're taking the cancer.
So anything that can be done to detect this early and show that if you're predisposed, and this covers 50 different types of cancer,
correct,
before symptoms actually materialise.
One of the challenges, though, will be, of course, if because this could be out on the market by 2024, apparently, is with the creaking NHS as we have it now, what happens you know, when you get this influx of people needing to be treated
Very true, mate. Very true. Yeah. Right, Emma, we stay on medical matters. Telegraph, front page for them. And the headline screams NHS... What's that?
111.
111.
Yeah.
Patients on hold 20 times.
Triage yourself, basically.
Not a great headline, but anyway, tell us what it means.
So obviously the public are being urged not to go to A&E. Instead of going to A&E, ring NHS 111 if you have, you know, maybe not emergencies, but if you have serious medical concerns. And the target is for calls to NHS 111 to be answered within 20 seconds. Unfortunately, the average call time is 6.5 minutes. So this
before
is a
they
difficult
answer.
one. Before they answer. I think this is a difficult one because I think if you call up, like I did, I called NHS 111 the other day about a toddler rash, which is not an emergency. I think 6 minutes or so is fair enough.
Yeah.
But I think if you're being told to call with a medical emergency and you're waiting 6.5 minutes when it should be 20 seconds...
There should be
that is way too long.
Maybe. But the way the system's evolved is where... We're using A&E in the wrong way. We're using 111, obviously, in the wrong way.
We're not using A&E in the wrong way. We're going to A&E.
Yeah.
People don't choose to go to A&E.
No.
They're going with a medical emergency. And as Ellie and I were talking about just before, you just wait and wait and wait. People are waiting hours and hours in accident emergencies.
Yeah.
You don't choose to go there for fun.
Yeah.
There are people that end up...
What I never understand about A&E is if it is the point of entry into the system, and if your injury or whatever's wrong, your illness is at its most acute, why isn't it funded and staffed much greater than it is. That's the serious bit.
And the difficulty of getting GP appointments, which is funneling people to their hospitals. You do go to A&E and you see people that aren't obviously in an emergency. Maybe they've sprained their ankle or something, so they're in pain or whatever, but perhaps they shouldn't be at an emergency. I think it's a really difficult point, but we have a crisis across the NHS.
Also, if you go to A&E, then you know that you're going to be waiting 6 or 7 hours if you go to A&E. If you call an ambulance and you're taken to A&E, you're seen much quicker and you're at the front of the queue.
Yeah, but if you get an ambulance, that is, mate.
But of course, many ambulances now, they're stacked up outside, waiting their turn to go into A&E. So, I mean, we are in a real challenging scenario.
The issue is as well, I think it's where this story comes in, is the point of entry has changed. It used to be A&E, but now, the latest report, as we were saying, Emma, it's something like 12 hours wait sometimes in an A&E to be seen. So that's why you're encouraged to get on the phone to 111 to see if you need to be in an A&E. Exactly. But then that's got a delay of 6.5 minutes. And if you're in a medical emergency, that's serious.
Exactly.
That point
and
of
have
entry
you ever tried just to ring your surgery in the morning at 8 o'clock when the whole country is told to ring up for an emergency, for an important appointment? You can't get through because the entire country is trying to get through. So I think if we could sort out the primary care as well, that would really help relieve the pressure.
OK, guys, let's move on now to examination results. This is front page of The Times, and it's about GCSE results.
Yeah, so the GCSE results are due out Thursday, and what they're predicting is that boys will fall further behind the girls due to the effects of having to have studied in lockdown. And the idea purported here is that boys were more likely through lockdown to
be distracted by
playing their PlayStations and do their war games, while girls are more consequential and got stuck in. And this is actually my experience. My daughter plays on her phone as much as my son, but when she had to apply herself to study, she did so. My son was more ingenuitive and logged on and tried to show that he was present whilst in class, and then with his mates offline were playing their games. Now he's got back on the wagon again, but I think for me it's very, very clear that we should never have a lockdown again, but if we did, schools must be exempt, and somehow boys need to be in front of a structured scenario in order to learn, and they will focus, or he certainly will focus, whereas girls are able to recognise, put my game aside, do my school, now it's break, get back to my game. I know it's a massive generalisation, but that's my experience.
Well, let's test. We have two girls in the studio. Let's just see, Miss Ellie. First of all, do you identify with any of that?
I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens on Thursday, because these are kids that have had to self-teach and, as you're saying, Chris, focus themselves for 2 years. And I think it will be interesting to see what the divide is between boys and girls. I love to study. I loved school. So I would.
What sort of freak are you?
I know, I'm a weirdo. Even now, I really like reading and being across things. But no, I really liked it. But my brother, if he wasn't in a class, my goodness, you won't want to see the outcome.
Well, look, it's not news that if you spend more time playing on your computer game and your PlayStation, you're not going to do as well in your exams. I think it's well known as well that girls, teenage girls, younger sort of females at a younger age tend to be better at independent study. They tend to mature earlier, whereas at university it tends to be men that do better, that come out with higher degrees. So it's a really interesting divide. But I think, of course, teenage boys, younger boys, it's really difficult to get them learning on their own and to keep that going when they don't have a teacher or a parent, spoon-feeding them and encouraging them.
Especially when the peer pressure is to go and play. Go and play.
Girls do tend to be more responsible and more motivated at a younger age.
But the Times blames PlayStation here, and it's saying that that's why girls are going to beat boys, because the boys are all on PlayStation. But now it's phones, isn't it? It's phones, and kids get smartphones so early on, and they've got the draw of TikTok.
Yeah, girls spend a lot of time on social media.
And that sort of thing. So I'm not even sure if that's right.
Well, yeah, but
when I was a teenager at school, whatever it is, the biggest distraction for me would have been girls and sport.
Yes.
Sort of. I'm not sure exactly in what order.
Yeah.
It would have been.
I am.
Good. That's your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health. At least you were active. You were thinking about either the girl you were in love with, or football, or something. I think that at least you were engaging with the real world rather than this virtual world that kids are locked into tiny screens.
Guys, in the real world at the moment, and we're getting reaction from you guys who are getting in touch with us. Remember, if it matters to you, it matters to us as well. gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet at gbnews. David says, strike fever. We're talking about the strike. You're waking up to the news that there's going to be 8 days of strikes at Felixstowe docks. Half of all containers in the country come through Felixstowe. Strike fever is intolerable. It's happening everywhere. We can't have the unions dictating to the government and holding the country to ransom like they did in the 70s. Well, au contraire, it looks as though it's happening. We're all frustrated with the country's problems, but we need to pull together and get out of this mess. A very small minority are blackmailing a very large majority, says Rob. You see, well, that's not... You see, what I wanted to say to you, people are feeling the pinch. People are... They're definitely at least 10% down in their income. And if they're unionised, they've got a weapon to come out and fight against this. And he who shouts loudest is often listened to.
The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And look, this whole idea that we're all in it together. We were all in it together in 2008 in the global financial crisis when the banks crashed and the workers had the austerity measures. We're all in it together now through the COVID pandemic, and now we're supposed to be all in it together while fat cats are getting the massive bonuses, and the basic worker who's on 20, 30 grand a year is being told that he or she is going to pay 3.5 to 5 grand for their energy bill.
So I'm gathering, if you were unionised, if you were in a union, you would be on the picket line.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
I've got a family to feed. You know, the nice way to do it is to go on strike rather than go throwing bricks through windows and you know, making a nuisance of myself.
But the problem is, I agree with you, we all agree with you that the basic worker is struggling and is not getting pay rises and all of that, but they don't affect the fat cats. The fat cats don't care whether the buses and train, they're not bothered, they can jump in a cab. The basic worker who's coming out on strike is affecting the other basic workers, is affecting the rest of us.
Thanks. Your views. The guys are going to be back in 40 minutes' time. Keep in touch. We're heading out and about. Where are we going to?
Going to Swanage. It's time now for On Your Doorstep. And Jeff Moody is there for us this morning. Good morning to you, Jeff.
Good morning. Well, yes, I'm live in Swanage. And Eamonn, you said you wanted a few more details about Swanage. So I've come up to the English Stamp Company to find out a bit more about the place. Eve, you've lived here all your life, haven't you? Tell us a bit about why Swanage is such a great place to live.
It's an amazing place. You've got the sea, you've got the coastal walks, you've got the countryside. What's not to love?
And beautiful Corfe Castle, just sort of looking over it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's known as the Jurassic Coast, which goes from Poole all the way down to Exeter, is it? Exmouth.
Yeah.
Why is it called the Jurassic Coast?
I think
Obvious reasons,
mostly
perhaps?
to do with the evidence of dinosaurs that have been found here. The footprints are all around this area. And, yeah, there's a great museum in the local village, Kimmeridge, which is full of extracts and evidence that they were here.
So we're sitting where dinosaurs once trod.
Absolutely.
Now, you run or work for the English Stamp Company. Now, we're not talking about the sort of stamps that you lick and put onto your envelopes, are you? Tell us about these stamps.
So our stamps are for decorating more than anything and for businesses. So we do lots of art stamps so people can make their own wrapping paper, tags, cards. We also do business stamps, so for branding, logo design, business cards, that sort of thing. Lots of wedding stationery, and we're seeing people going back to using our stamps for interior projects as well, which is really nice.
Are you finding, or do you think you'll find, when the cost of living crisis bites further, do you think that people will turn to arts and crafts a lot more than they have done?
Yeah, and I think we're already seeing evidence of that. You know, people are loving going back to making their own wrapping paper, and in terms of branding for your business, there's nothing really cheaper. You don't have the restrictive print quantities to deal with. One stamp, and you can stamp up your business cards, your paper bags, you can brand your T-shirts, everything. So it's a really cost-effective way.
OK, let's have a look at one of these stamps. Now, you can actually put your own face on one, can't you? We found this one because it looks to me like a little bit like a young Eamonn Holmes. A little bit. So let's have a look and see if that looks anything like a young Eamonn Holmes.
What do we reckon?
What do you think, Eamonn? Did you ever look like that?
Get a close-up, get the camera in there. Let's get... What are you trying to say? Come on, camera.
Closer look, Sass.
Yeah. What, when I was 10? Because I've got a rubbery face. A rubbery face. That may say it all there. That's put the seal of approval on everything. Fascinating to see, guys. Thank you very much indeed. Another aspect to Swanage. And Swanage is on the... is that on the Jurassic
Coast? Yeah, beautiful part of the world.
Where all the fossils are.
All the fossils can be found, yeah. If you are on the Jurassic Coast, do send us pictures. Do let us know where you're watching us from this morning. gbnews@gbnews.uk. We want to know more, because Jeff Moody's done a fantastic job of selling it to us.
And if you're in a caravan or a guest house or whatever it is, you can listen to us on the radio, but then you probably are listening to us on the radio. Spread the word. And the app means you can get us on the TV. Doesn't matter what the TV's tuned into in the caravan or whatever, you can get it on your telephone.
Yeah, there's no escaping us. We're also on YouTube. We've also got an app, so you've got no excuses. We are everywhere. Lots of you getting in touch on the Felixstowe strikes, so do keep them coming in. Lots of you want to know numbers, which I think is quite interesting. David said...
What do you mean? Numbers?
He wants to know what percentage pay rise the top managers are getting. Are they getting the same as the workforce, or are they getting higher? Are they getting 8% or are they getting less? He wants to know the numbers. And then perhaps then you decide whether you think it's justified. Let us know what you think.
But not that my maths is great, but I mean, even if they were getting 5% on a six-figure salary, whatever, is much better than getting 10% on a five-figure salary.
It's a fantastic point.
Am I right there?
Yes.
Am I right?
It's a
so
fantastic
they can
point.
get less percentage but more money.
Yes.
I think.
Yes, you're right. You are right. It's definitely...
Which is why we do words, not figures. Anyway, talking about strikes, all to come after the weather that starts the day and the week.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking rather cloudy with outbreaks of heavy rain moving eastwards across the country. A cloudy picture across southwest England with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. Feeling warm and humid with temperatures of around 20 Celsius. After a sunny morning across southeast England, cloud will begin to spill in from the west by lunchtime, perhaps a few showers arriving too. Wet across southern parts of Wales at midday. Outbreaks of rain could be heavy in places. Poor visibility over the hills and coast too. Cloudy for the Midlands this lunchtime with outbreaks of rain. The rain will be heavy at times with a risk of some surface water flooding places. Feeling humid but warm with light winds. It's a mixed picture this lunchtime across northeast England, often cloudy with showery rain in places, but a few brighter spells are possible too. Temperatures approaching 20 degrees Celsius with generally light winds. The mostly dry and bright weather continues across southern Scotland, cloud amounts tending to increase from the south. Temperatures will be around 15 Celsius. Rather cloudy across much of Northern Ireland with a risk of some rain in places, perhaps a few bright or sunny spells developing from time to time, most likely in the far east. Rain will continue to move east through the day with scattered heavy showers following. Warm and humid for many.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A new week of strikes begins at the UK's biggest port, threatening Britain with empty supermarket shelves.
Hello there, very good morning to you. Your time's creeping up to 8 o'clock. It's Monday, the 22nd of August, and you're tuned into Breakfast here on GB News with me, Eamonn Holmes, and Ecclestone.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. As we just said, workers at the UK's biggest port, Felixstowe, have gone on strike for the first time in 30 years in a dispute over pay. Dock workers are threatening to grind Britain's supply chains to a halt.
National Grid chiefs have proposed a plan that would pay people to avoid using energy-intensive appliances at peak hours. Under the scheme, customers could be paid not to wash clothes or dishes between the hours of 5 and 8 p.m.
And we'll be on your doorstep in the Jurassic coast town of Swanage in Dorset, hearing from you about the issues that matter.
And you can join in any of our conversations. And the conversation that's really getting you today is the strike at Felixstowe, which we're just about to lead with. And a lot of you, I can't really see people sympathetic about this, but I tell you, this is a strike that is going to hurt the country if this is allowed to continue.
Yeah, and it could go on and on. We were hearing earlier, if they don't get anything in the next 8 days, they're not afraid to continue. Could it affect our Christmas? We're going to be talking about that in just a second. Do get in touch with your thoughts, gbviews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
You can also subscribe to GB News channel on YouTube to get all the latest on the big stories that matter to you. Well, this is our top story today. Dock workers in Britain's biggest container port have begun a new week of strikes. This is the first of its kind there at Felixstowe in 30 years. And remember that 50% of all container traffic goes through Felixstowe. So they have rejected a 7% pay offer so far from the company that runs the port, and disruption on all of this could prove catastrophic, really, because this is key to the supply chain over the whole country.
Yeah, already warnings of empty supermarket shelves in the run-up to Christmas. It always gets to that point, doesn't it, where we're saying that Christmas is going to be cancelled. Well, we're joined now by Kelly Beaver, fantastic name, CEO of Ipsos in the UK and Ireland. Kelly, good morning to you, and thank you for joining us. So, I mean, we're just saying that this strike is significant, isn't it? It's half of all, what were we calling it earlier, half of all containers traffic that comes through the UK comes through Felixstowe. I mean, we are going to see huge impact on our supply chains. What do the public make of this? Do they support this strike or do they not?
So there have been a number of strikes. We've been looking at what people have been calling the summer of discontent with various rail and tube strikes, and this is the latest in a long line. The public are actually quite divided, and I know you hear quite opposing opinions and quite loud vocal opinions at either end of this argument. The public believe in fairness, they believe in the right to have a trade union. 6 in 10 of them think workers are not fairly enough represented, etc. But when it comes down to something like the kind of strike action that we're seeing, there are about a third who say they would support, a third they say they oppose. But support for strike is not the same as sympathy for strike, and sympathy with the workers is actually higher than that. But what people look back to is, what have strikes delivered in history? And when you ask people, actually, over a majority would say it has been unnecessary disruption, and only 1 in 5 say it has reached its intended outcome.
I mean, as you say, the sympathy is there because basically everybody's in the same boat. Everybody would like a 10% plus pay rise, but it's when it begins to affect them. People say, I support the rail workers, unless it happens on a day that they're looking to catch a train somewhere, I suppose.
Well, to some extent, but actually your decision about whether you support or oppose trade unions and strike action is not just a fleeting opinion. It does tend to be something that's more anchored in your personal values. You see real differences between Labour and Conservative voters around support for strikes and support for trade unions in general, for example. So it is less likely to be fluctuating quite substantively over the course. We've seen it quite consistent in all of the public measures and the surveys that have happened over the last 3 months. It is quite, a third. Some of the polls will show support higher, but look at those carefully, because what they're doing is they're forcing people into one of two camps, as opposed to thinking about the nuance of, I don't know,
you
I'm
say
not sure.
Third and a third. Where does that leave the other third?
They don't know, they're not sure, they haven't formed a proper opinion.
You know what I think? I think a lot of people who may say, trade unions, I'm not for trade unions, are now secretly thinking or quietly thinking, I wish I was in one. I do think, I wonder what effect this will have on people's support or opinion of trade unions, because people realise when they're on their own, no one's fighting for them and that 10% pay rise.
Well, we've seen and we've been looking at people's support and views of trade unions in this country for over 50 years, and it's always between 8 in 10 and 9 in 10 people who say they support the role of a trade union. And British people, again, underlying value is about fairness. We see this around NHS waiting times. We see this a whole walk of public policy issues. And similarly with trade unions, there's a right for a trade union. Workers need support and representation. We sympathise with the workers, but we're quite divided on whether we support this particular strike.
Yeah.
And do you think we could see support start to wane if we see these strikes continue? As you said, we have a summer of strikes. We've seen the rails, we've seen the tubes, we've seen buses. We're talking now about Royal Mail strikes, Amazon strikes. I mean, if this now continues for weeks and months, could that support start to wane? And maybe you see those don't knows.
So there's a couple of things you might see. As you say, you might see the ones who are in that middle group who haven't really formed an opinion or say that they don't know right now, start to have more of an opinion and move into either of the two camps. What you will also see, though, is a call for somebody to sort it out. So whether that's government, whether that's the railway bosses or whether that's all of the above, there will be an increased demand and pressure put on the government to put in place some measures which make the country run properly.
Let's, at this stage, Kelly, I'd like just to bring in, you're giving us the analysis and the way people think, and you were saying it's very, very important that people understand or work out, are they empathetic towards a strike? I want to introduce you to this man, Mike Wackett now. Mike is a chartered ship broker. He's editorial consultant for the supply chain industry journal, The Lodestar. Mike, really good to have your take and your analysis on things today. We were trying to work out, people have to decide whether this strike is important to them or not. And I put it to you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that this will be one of the most important strikes that we'll come across this year. I mean, you can talk about disruption on the trains and whatever, but not everybody uses trains. Everybody uses what comes through the port of Felixstowe, though.
That's true, Eamonn. Basically, a lot will depend really on whether this strike is continued. At the moment, we have 8 days, and most of the shipping lines have been able to navigate the way around that, either by bringing some of the ships in earlier or maybe changing the rotations of some of those ships. Some of those ships will also discharge their cargoes in North Europe. Some may even discharge cargoes in other UK ports, because don't forget, we still have London Gateway and Southampton as two key container hubs in the UK. So it's not total shutdown. So really much depends on what happens after these 8 days. And what shipping lines obviously don't want is for there to be uncertainty. So no 24-hour strikes or 48-hour strikes or other sorts of industrial action. So they'll be able to navigate the 8 days, and obviously it will cause some disruption to the supply chain. But most people will be able to get around that in due course, as long as it ends next Monday.
Well, so we need to talk about why it's happening as well. And as Kelly was trying to say, people decide whether they support or don't support a strike depending on their understanding of the grievance involved here. So we were talking to a union representative earlier in the programme. Tell us about the owners, Felixstowe Dock and Railway Company. I mean, he was making out they make very, very big profits, and they have been doing for a long time, and it's about time they shared that around. He's saying they can afford a 10% rise, and he feels his workers deserve it after what they've been doing to keep the country going during the pandemic.
Well, one could say that everybody deserves an increase, and obviously with inflation as it is, that's what workers will be looking to do. Having said that, companies need to make profits to keep going, and obviously Felixstowe has had to invest in the port to make sure it can accommodate these mega 24,000 TEU ships. I'd rather not be drawn on that one, but basically to say that obviously the two sides need to sit down. They were at ACAS. Those talks broke down, but worryingly there's no sign of any further talks. So they need to sit down back at ACAS and thrash this out.
And Mike, you have worked at Felixstowe yourself, haven't you? There's people that are waking up this morning, they haven't yet read about this or heard about this. It's the first they're hearing. So describe Felixstowe to us, because it is quite unique, isn't it? And we heard earlier that the workers aren't quite militant, or they haven't been before. They haven't been on strike in 30 years. This is really quite significant, isn't it?
It is, because it's not a traditional dock area, unlike London and Southampton. Felixstowe came out of nothing, out of a small dock basin, and developed into the biggest UK container port. Most people in Felixstowe, when I worked there, work in the shipping industry. Some have even been transferred from Southampton or other places, etc. So there is very much a shipping fraternity there. So dock workers' families work in the forwarding industry, they work in the transport industry, so it's all interconnected. So this will be hitting not just the dockers in their take-home pay, but everybody else that will face some loss of earnings.
Mike, got to leave it there. Thanks for your take on things. Mike Wackett is an editorial consultant for a supply chain journal called The Lodestar. Kelly Beaver is a pollster. She's chief executive of Ipsos. And the next subject that we want to get on to is small businesses. And you talked about having an emotional connection and sympathy. And we're going to talk to a chip shop owner now, because a lot of these small businesses, people are just finding it hard to pay the energy bills for, in this case, their fryers and whatever. So when you go to your high street, and I've seen this locally to me, when you see takeaways and things close, well, it affects your life, and therefore there is that emotional attachment.
I think the cost of living and what's happening around the country right now, it is the top concern to the British public. And obviously cost of living is personal, but it's also an impact on our business infrastructure hugely. So I'll be very interested to hear what they have to say. OK, well, let's hear what they have to say, Kelly. Thank you very much indeed. One of those business owners is Andrew Crook, who runs a fish and chip shop, Skippers, off, where's that, Euxton? Where? Euxton.
Euxton?
How do we pronounce that?
Yeah, that's Ecclestone. Everyone struggles with that, don't worry.
Ecclestone. And where is Ecclestone?
Ecclestone's in Lancashire, just outside Chorley.
Oh, well, I know where Chorley is, OK. So, Andrew, that's good. And also, you have there listening retail expert Kate Hardcastle as well, just to maybe give us some insight into the problems that you face, because Kate's always talking about high streets. But this is a new one, Andrew. This is a new one. Fish and chips. We're talking about empathy, sympathy. We're talking about everybody in the same boat together. My friend, tell me how hard it's got for you guys selling fish and chips.
Yeah, it's very tough out there. We've seen inflationary prices on almost all our inputs. We're also seeing now people coming up to the changes in their energy bills, and there's between 500% and 600% increase because we've no energy cap. So it's very, very difficult. And like you said, we're part of everybody's community. I mean, a business to us is more than just a job, but to our local communities that we serve, you know, we look after the old people that come in. We might be the only people that they talk to all day. You know, we keep an eye on people. We put back to our communities. We employ local people, and it's a very worrying time for us.
Andrew, you're completely right. I mean, even Eamonn was just saying a little bit earlier on, he's had 2 fish and chips in the past week. He's doing his bit to support his local
and
chippy.
mushy peas. I'm a great fan of mushy peas.
There
Yes,
goes curry sauce for me.
But listen, how much is, I have to say, I didn't really take account of how much it would be, but how much is cod and chips nowadays?
Yeah.
In my shop, I'm at $8.50, but I mean the price of cod has more or less doubled. So we've definitely been cushioning consumers because we realise that there is a cost of living crisis out there, and everyone's going to be struggling. You know, the disposable income's being eaten up by their own energy bills and their own increases in costs. So we're doing our best to keep prices down, and we've got a great product, but unfortunately, we need government to just have a look. We want a long-term strategy for hospitality. It's not just fish and chip shops. It's a lot of independent businesses that are at risk here, and if we lose them, we'll never get them back, and it's something special. You know, we put back into communities with the life of the communities. We had a lot of colour to the high streets, and unfortunately, we're definitely at risk at the moment. But I'm not hearing anything from the 2 candidates for the Conservative Party about small business. So it's great they're doing things for consumers because we need that. Big business needs a little bit of help, but small businesses, we're very worried, and we've no idea what the plan is. And we just need that vision past the next election. It needs to be a 10-year strategy. We need a strategy that will just take us forward.
Here's my point about Andrew and what he does, and he's absolutely right. He's part of our fabric, our everyday life, our high streets, our town streets, whatever. Do you know what? And I'm just going to say this. Government don't care. He's too ordinary. He'll always be there. He's a fish and chip shop. They don't disappear. They're going to be there forever. But Andrew's saying that's not necessarily the case. I put it to you, politicians just don't care.
Politicians talk in sound bites a lot of the time, Eamonn, and the challenge is that we all live in reality, and it's a very, very different situation out there. We have over 5 million small businesses in the UK, and they play a massive part, not just in our economy, but our communities. They're more likely to get local supply, use local people and talent in terms of their employment skills. They are the voice of the community. They do provide that support for local people, just as we've heard from Andrew, talking to people perhaps who are facing this loneliness crisis that we've got. Over 2 million adults in the UK saying that their loneliness and their feelings of feeling lonely are at peak level. And we have got to understand this infrastructure of small and big business is absolutely paramount to our economy. And yet, I know many people will say, well, Rishi stepped forward, Chancellor of the Exchequer stepped forward at pandemic and said, look, here are some grants, here's some money to keep going. But that only hit so many businesses. And a lot of the businesses that missed out, I think 3 million that are still being campaigned for, were small businesses. And think about the roller coaster ride that businesses like Andrew have been through. He might have been able to turn to takeout at some point to keep going through the pandemic. There were on and off lockdowns that meant he will have had to close his business at certain times. And then he will have had different appetite from consumers. They will perhaps not come back to that area because they might not be working in that area. Then after that, the rising costs, his COD's gone. As we've heard, it's doubled in cost. His energy costs are going up. He might have also had challenges where he's lost labour and then had to try and re-employ people, which is a difficult element.
Andrew, just give us an idea. Andrew, just give us an idea how much it would cost to heat that fryer, to keep that oil hot behind you. I don't know if you can put a figure on it, but I mean that's the bread and butter, isn't it?
And even the cost of oil now as well.
It is. It's very. Yeah, the oil's expensive as well, but it's very difficult. So it depends on the level of trade. But I'm talking to other shop owners. Their energy bills are going from £6,000 a year to £36,000 to £40,000 a year. You know, it's just not manageable. And this is why we need government to come up with a plan, because you know we're not hearing anything that's giving us any hope. Everyone seems to have disappeared. I've just had a text from my contact at DEFRA, so hopefully there's something happening today, because the longer this goes on, the more damage it's doing. And I've got so much cash reserves in my business, but that's getting eaten away very quickly. And today I'm taking the keys back from a shop that I used to own. The guy just can't, my tenant just can't make it pay, so he's handing.
Seriously, you're taking that back. Well, look, Andrew's there in Ecclestone, which is near Chorley, the dilemma of fish and chip shops, and Kelly Beaver, just the pollster here from Ipsos on that. He makes an impassioned claim there, and I do think there's something about the ordinariness of a fish and chip shop that's bound to hit home with people, because if it's affecting the fish and chip shop, sure as heck it's affecting them.
Yeah, well, so what was interesting in what he said to me was about using his reserves. And we see this not just with businesses, but with people. People have used the reserves they saved up throughout the pandemic, if they were in the lucky position to have done so. And now they're making really difficult choices about what they buy, what they actually are able to do with their family, when they're able to eat out or not eat out at all, whether they're able to eat, whether they're going to food banks, etc. And businesses are in the same sort of position. They've used their reserves and now they're thinking about other measures they're going to have to take, which ultimately may lead to continued rising prices.
Kelly, really appreciate your take on things. Thank you. Would like now to bring in Kevin Hollinrake MP. Kevin's the MP for Thirsk and Malton. He joins us from North Yorkshire this morning. Kevin, you're very much part of Team Rishi. You know, I just want to say, it's getting embarrassing now. It's getting embarrassing how long this is dragging on. And I think you're losing empathy and sympathy from the country. They're just saying, give us a blooming Prime Minister, get it done and get some action underway. I'm sure there's a frustration for the candidates too. But you must admit, Kevin, this has gone on too long now, hasn't it?
Well, I, like you, Eamonn, and the general public want to see somebody in place. A week on Monday we'll have somebody in place. The key thing is making sure it's the right person, and you need a certain amount of time to make sure you got the arguments across. I used to support Rishi Sunak.
About fish and chip shops. Tell us about what Rishi Sunak might do for fish and chip shops.
Well, I listened to what you said before and what Andrew said, and I think it's entirely wrong, I've got to say, Eamonn, to say that politicians don't care. We do the job we do because we do care. We want to serve the public, and it's a great honour to do so. And we saw in the last pandemic how Rishi stepped in. He didn't step in to support big banks and big businesses. He did some of that, but primarily his support was to small businesses. And not just those small businesses, but also people's jobs. And the economists were forecasting millions of people to be added to the employment ranks of the unemployed, and that didn't happen because of Rishi's support for small businesses and through the furlough scheme. He's proven in crises that he can innovate and implement very creative solutions very, very quickly that provides broad-based support for everybody. And the cost of living crisis is key now for most households. Broad-based support for everybody. So everybody in this country got about £400 off their energy bill. But for those low-income households, they got around £1,200. And he's going to use the same framework to help households this time, is what he's already said. And for those very low-income households, which we've got to focus on, of course, because they just can't make ends meet, he'll do something similar. But I also would urge Rishi and Liz Truss to look at whoever wins this, to look at small businesses too. That's been my background, absolutely critical to our economy. We've got to make sure they get through this as well.
Kevin, I wanted to draw your attention to the front page of the Times this morning. It's polling and focus groups for the Times newspaper, and it's saying that they would actually want Boris Johnson as leader. They'd much prefer Boris Johnson over Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak. Why is Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss just not engaging people? Why are they so lacklustre? Why is it that Tory party members would actually still prefer Boris Johnson over the two candidates that are put to us?
Well, I can appreciate the frustration, I was just saying before, and people just want to move on. I think we have to move on, though. If you cast your mind back only probably 8 weeks ago, there was before the Prime Minister stepped down, about 4 weeks prior to that, there was a vote of no confidence in the House of Commons on the Prime Minister, and 148 members of Parliament voted against him. I think, and then we had the Chris Pincher affair, and I think that at that point in time, his position became untenable, sadly. So we need to move on from that. That decision's been made. We've got a process in place. As I said, a week on Monday, we'll have a new Prime Minister. If we want to move on from the crises we've had in the past and the chaos, I think we need somebody who can run things effectively, strategise, but also implement. I think Rishi is that kind of person that will bring that sense of calm and competence to governments, and that can lead us through this crisis, as he did the last crisis.
With Liz Truss 32 points ahead, we do know that this isn't a general election. You know, campaigning doesn't count really until the last moment. This is about Conservative Party members. It is a postal ballot mainly. And we know that Conservative Party members tend to vote early as well. Most of them have already cast their votes. Is there even anything more for Rishi Sunak to play for at this point when Liz Truss is that far out ahead?
I think it's all to play for. I see the national polls, I read those as you do, but I also see the local evidence. I polled my members, 700 members, to a third responded, and Rishi's got an 8-point lead. I look at the National Conservative Councillors survey, which was by far the most accurate poll last time we had a leadership contest, and it's within a point either way between the two candidates. So I think there's everything to play for. Rishi's been speaking to literally tens of thousands of Conservative members. I saw him at Darlington at Hustings. He had a rapturous reception, both before, during and after that event. I just don't understand where these polls are coming from. They may be right, who knows, but that's not what we're seeing on the ground. There's all to play for. Let's make the arguments, and I urge any member who hasn't voted, and there's about 40% of them that haven't in the last survey I saw, to think about the future. Judge people by their actions, not by their words. Let's look for somebody who's got a reputation of leading us through crises. He's helped us all before. He'll help us all again. He'll do it in a targeted, temporary but very affordable way, rather than simply throwing lots and lots of money at what will be high-income households and corporations. I think that's a wrong way to deal with this crisis.
Kevin, just as briefly as you can, just final point to you. The crisis is just getting worse. We've got another strike underway today, the dockers at Felixstowe. Very important strike, this one. Everybody wants 10% or 10% plus. How on earth, I mean, we know, I mean, I don't know the answer to this question, but, you know, people at home will say, well, I want 10%, I want 10%. Everybody wants 10%. But the country can't afford 10%. How do you get the message across to people that says, look, we're all going to have to take a bit of a hit on this?
Well, I think that's right, and I think certainly high-income households, the ones that aren't struggling to make ends meet, yes, they will be affected too, and you know, some of us are just going to have to batten down the hatches and turn the heating down and put solar panels on our roofs.
Don't know what. Well, I think what happened is the money in our meter ran out on Kevin Hollinrake, and as you saw, sorry, Kevin, sorry, you became Jenny Bond for just a second.
Sorry.
The people are going to have to suck it up, tighten their belts, and, you know, just realise the reality.
Well, I think the trouble with the strikes are, part of the problems with inflation are the supply chain problems. You're going to make those supply chain problems worse by going on strike. I would urge everybody out there who's thinking of striking, get back to the negotiating table, come up with something fair. You're not going to get double-digit pay growth in most sectors, but we want to make sure people get through this, a combination of wage increases and taxpayer-funded support. We've got to make it affordable, and you've got to target it. Yes, help everybody, but help those low-income households the most.
I'll leave it there. Thanks for the message. Kevin Hollinrake is MP for Thurston Malton, and he's a big Rishi supporter. Thank you very much indeed for your time. 26 minutes past 8.
Yeah, coming up, as Channel 4 broadcast a new documentary ahead of Princess Diana's anniversary, royal commentator Jenny Bond will be sorting the facts from the conspiracy theories. But first, here's the weather.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking rather cloudy with outbreaks of heavy rain moving eastwards across the country. A cloudy picture across southwest England with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. Feeling warm and humid with temperatures of around 20 Celsius. After a sunny morning across southeast England, a cloud will begin to spill in from the west by lunchtime, perhaps a few showers arriving too. Wet across southern parts of Wales at midday. Outbreaks of rain could be heavy in places. Poor visibility over the hills and coast too. Cloudy for the Midlands this lunchtime with outbreaks of rain. The rain will be heavy at times with a risk of some surface water flooding places. Feeling humid but warm with light winds. It's a mixed picture this lunchtime across northeast England. Often cloudy with showery rain in places, but a few brighter spells are possible too. Temperatures approaching 20 degrees Celsius with generally light winds. The mostly dry and bright weather continues across southern Scotland, cloud amounts tending to increase from the south. Temperatures will be around 15 Celsius. Rather cloudy across much of Northern Ireland with a risk of some rain in places, perhaps a few bright or sunny spells developing from time to time, most likely in the far east. Rain will continue to move east through the day with scattered heavy showers following. Warm and humid for many.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. The time has just gone 8:30. Now, the first part of a new documentary called Investigating Diana, Death in Paris aired last night on Channel 4. It was ahead of the 25th anniversary of Princess Diana's death. Well, the documentary looks into the investigations conducted by police into the tragic car crash and examined whether her death was an accident or not. Part 2 airs tonight at 9 p.m. Well, joining us now is royal commentator Jenny Bond. Good morning to you, Jenny. And you watched the documentary last night, so what was it like and what can people expect from it?
I think it was a very measured piece of work. As you said, this is actually over 4 parts, so it's 4 hours, a calm investigation of the account of the investigation. And I think it's great that they've got so much time for it. And you do learn new things, and it does shine new light, particularly on the driver of the car in which Diana died, Henri Paul. The crash scene itself, we see the forensic detail of what was found there. Some pearls were found. I didn't know that. Some pieces of the tail light of another car that was in the tunnel. We've always heard there was another car in the tunnel. And I must admit, I didn't know they had so much detail about the white Fiat Uno that was also there, it would seem, that suffered some damage, and that a woman, a witness who was interviewed, saw the driver of this car, gave a detailed description of him and of the dog that was in the back, which was wearing a muzzle. So incredible detail. And of course, you do ask, why could they not track down that driver and that car? But they must have had a reason, whoever they were, to get away from the scene and to hide for all these years.
Jenny, it really is quite remarkable. I'm just going to read you the episode description on the Channel 4 website. It says, on Princess Diana's car crash, was it an accident or was she murdered? I mean, it really is remarkable wording there. There always has been conspiracy theories, but now they are just quite so public, aren't they?
Well, they've always been public over the 25 years, and I think it will continue to be so. Diana was and is to an extent an icon. She died young, and in the eyes of so many people, she will be forever young, and she will forever be a victim, not only of her marriage and of the royal family, but of this accident. I personally don't believe it. Her sons do not believe it. They have been told in great detail in their later life about what went on there by Lord Stevens, the former head of the Met, and he sat them down for an hour and a half and talked to them about it. They believe it was an accident. There was a jury in the inquest, which was 9 years after the accident. It sat for 6 months, the investigation, into her death, the inquest, and at the end, having interviewed 278 people over 6 months, the jury decided by a majority verdict that it was the grossly negligent driving of Henri Paul and those who followed, i.e. the paparazzi, that caused the crash. So I think we have to go with that.
And Jenny, over the last 25 years, we've seen so many films, series, books all over Princess Diana. I mean, as you said there, she's the people's princess. We have such an obsession with her, really, as a country. She's an absolute icon to so many of us. But so many people, especially online, are saying 25 years now, let's just let her rest. What do you say to that?
Well, yes, I think that would be wise, and I think that is certainly be a kindness to her sons. It must be awful to be William and Harry, and to be Charles also, and to have these facts, these allegations brought up again, the facts shown on television, the fact of their mother's death. If I was either of them, though, I would be so curious to know every single detail. I probably couldn't resist watching. But if they did watch, it would be an extremely emotional and hurtful watch. And yeah, I think perhaps it is time to accept the jury's verdict, accept the result of 2 police investigations, and let her rest in peace.
And what will the royal family's reaction be to this documentary, do you think, especially Her Majesty the Queen?
As I say, I think it's a painful watch for anyone who was closely involved with Diana. I don't think the Queen would watch it. As I say, I wonder if her sons might be able to resist at least reading about it. But it's got to be hurtful. It's got to be deeply emotional. But that's the life they have lived for 25 years, and I'm afraid it will continue.
And Jenny, I just wanted to ask you quickly about the Cambridges moving house. They're moving into Prince Andrew's old home, I believe.
No, they're not moving into Prince Andrew's old home. They're moving to Adelaide Cottage, which is on the Windsor estate, which is near Royal Lodge, which is where Prince Andrew lives. They're all part of the royal estate. But Adelaide Cottage is nothing like as grand as Royal Lodge. It's just a 4-bedroom detached, a very, very lovely and historic 4-bedroom detached house. A stone's throw, really, from Windsor Castle, so they're very, very near Granny. And more to the point, they'll be close to the school that the 3 young children are going to go to, and closer to the Middletons, to Catherine's parents. And I think that's really important because they're a big part of their lives.
Jenny, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Got to leave it there. With that, I just want to bring you up to date with, on the entertainment front, there is going to be Prince Andrew the musical. Shamed Prince Andrew's life is being turned into a satirical music comedy. The Duke of York's fall from grace will be lampooned in a Channel 4 show later this year. The songs will include My Profiterole, about how Prince Andrew wooed his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson with cream-filled treats.
Oh, dear.
Tell you that, I would be yours for that.
Oh, dear.
We're
going to see a lot more of this, though, aren't we? There's going to be a film about that interview, the famous Panorama one. I think we're going to see a lot more of Prince Andrew musicals and films and all the rest.
That's just one of the stories in the papers today. The rest of them covered by Chris Akabusi and Emma Wolfe right after this.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So much to talk about what's in the papers now with Olympian Chris Akabusi and the writer and the journalist Emma Wolf. Guys, very nice to have you back again. Chris, we're going to look ahead to winter first of all. Yeah. Front page of the page 6 of the Eye, record number of older people could die during this winter crisis. Is that because of fuel poverty or what?
Well, it's the perfect storm. You've got the pensioners who are minimum wage, basically of 9k they get from their pension. You've got the high double-digit growth inflation, and then you've got the energy bill crisis. And cold weather, it says here, has a big impact on older people as it becomes harder to regulate their body temperatures. So we do know that older people tend to die more in the winter, and they reckon that according to this article, that it's going to increase. And I looked at this and I thought to myself, here we are, deep into the 21st century. Some of these people will be the last group of people who were in the war, post-war generation, and their last few days, the last few years, they can look forward to dying in the cold because they can't afford to heat their homes or put food on the table. And if that's a legacy that we are leaving for them, it's a travesty.
And this is why we need to see action, isn't it, Emma? I mean, my granny, she's on a £13,000 a year pension. I mean, if we're talking about £5,000 energy bills, I mean, she literally cannot afford to heat her home. And I was having quite worried conversations with my mother just a few days ago about what we're going to do with her this winter. I mean, do we move her in with us? I mean, not everybody will have that option. Yeah. Something needs to be done, doesn't it?
Exactly. And older people can't move around as much. They can't run around and keep warm. They can't necessarily go out to public spaces or libraries or cafes to keep warm in the way that many people will be doing this winter. So I think we need, and we also, as Chris talks about the perfect storm, we also have the NHS crisis, where we know that old people go into hospital, maybe they stay there because there's no social care, they can't be discharged from hospital. So it really is, it's a grim winter ahead for everybody, but particularly for pensioners.
Yeah, thank goodness for family, and there's often a lot made of the bank of mum and dad for kids, but there's so many people who are squeezed in between, where they're supporting their kids and they're supporting elderly relatives as well in all of this, but thank goodness for them. Emma, in the Times, you've chosen a story about Prince Harry's book coming out, his memoir.
Yeah, so this is what, well, the Sun are calling it the bombshell memoir, or will it be a damp squib? I don't know. We've just seen obviously the royal story from the programme last night. This is the Duke of Sussex's, he calls it, first-hand account of his life that is accurate and wholly truthful. So I think he's a little bit of a dig at people who've maybe written things that aren't accurate and wholly truthful about him. Yeah. Finally, we think that it's coming out probably by the end of this year. And obviously,
well, that's good. He gets his royal trip in ahead of that, and then because obviously he wouldn't be able to face anyone after it.
Well, there's a lot of concern amongst royal circles. They haven't been given oversight of the manuscript. They haven't been given a sort sort of write a reply. They haven't seen the manuscript, and that's quite unusual. And there's a lot of concern, I think, discomfort over what revelations, what criticisms might come out, because we know what he said in the Oprah interview and various other interviews that he's given. So, you know, Harry back on the agenda again.
I mean, you would think he just doesn't want to make up with his brother. He doesn't want to extend an olive branch at all. It just seems like you get over one thing and it looks like they might be able to make amends, and then another book or another interview comes out.
Why move to California if you're obsessed with you know, telling the same story again and again? I don't know.
Well, he's probably telling the story for the Californian market as opposed to the United Kingdom. And his brother William has got obviously his career path mapped out. We know who he is and what he's going to become. Harry has nothing like that for himself. He's gone down the pecking order once. William had his children, has had his children. So, I mean, what else is the chap supposed to do? I mean, he's never going to be that shrinking violet. He's got a voice and he's articulating himself. And if he does want to right some wrongs, and now, I'm hoping it's not salacious stuff. I wouldn't want that myself personally. But I can understand him wanting to say, look, this is my unadulterated truth. And in the end, truth is very much a perspective thing. It's a contextual thing. And he's just talking about his context and his truth.
Chris, could I ask you, sorry, mate, if I've missed this, have you been on Strictly yet?
No, quite well done, mate. Yeah, well done. Well done, David.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I've been asked many times, and absolutely not a chance. And this article here is exactly the sort of reason why. So this article here, it's in the Mirror, and Helen Skelton has been held up because she's supposed to be a novice. She said she's a novice, but it's transpired that actually she's a very good tap dancer, and she appeared on Ked Dodd. Oh, tickle stick. she appeared, I'm really rubbish about impersonation.
Tatty Falaria.
And this is it.
She's won a competition.
Yeah, she's won a competition.
Tap dancing.
And when you go into these sort of competitions and you go with people who've been trained at stage school, at stage school they've done all of the basics. Quite clearly, she can do what she's doing against someone like myself who I can flick my disco moves. You know,
you'd be great.
I can flick my disco moves.
You'd win because you'd be. Every year they have a full.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be me, my friend.
That would be you.
That'd be me. No. But I wouldn't want to go down there because although I'm not competitive unless I'm really good at something, I still wouldn't want to be made to look the right prize Nana because she has got the basics and I haven't. And I'm at a step and I say, Akabusi, you're rubbish, 5 out of 10. Oh, check out Helen, great job. No, not me.
OK. No, I tend to agree with you.
Well, I bet you guys have all been asked. I would never in a million years be asked to do Strictly, and I wouldn't do it. God.
You will now. You'll get asked now.
I would.
Oh, you'd love it.
You give up your life. You do hours and hours of training. You wreck your marriage. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But the dresses are good. Makeup and all of that looks great. But no, I think there is something to be said for this because you've got the musicality, you've got the timing, there's all the basics you've got covered. And it is generally people who are pop stars or have had previous dance training.
Unless they decide unless the director decides there's another narrative that they're looking for. So if they're looking for the useful idiot, or if they're looking for the person who had no chance, outsider, and the most improved, then you've got a chance. But if they're looking for the best person, you haven't got a chance.
Yeah. Exactly. And then these stupid rules. There's a story in The Sun today, and the headline is Strictly Against the Rules. And basically, if you're a dancer, if you're a judge, and obviously that's what you do for a living, and you're asked to appear on a cruise ship or a hotel or whatever with some sort of demonstration, the Bieber are saying this is against our rules and you can't really do that. Well, you sort of think, well, look, I'm a dancer, that's what I do. They get paid comparatively little to do what they do on Strictly, and that's how they make their money. So all of that is... That's where I think you should have a union. Should have a dancers' union on that.
Strictly needs a union by the sounds of things. Emma, let's talk about... this is a horrible story. Swimming in sewage. It's been all over the papers this weekend.
Really disgusting.
Tell us about that. So people are at risk of swimming in sewage.
Yeah, so basically there are sewage monitors, or there should be sewage monitors at many of the seaside destinations in this beautiful land. We're trying to encourage people to stay at home, to holiday in the UK, or not to travel because the planes and trains and buses buses are all disrupted. But basically, it's been found out that lots and lots of these sewage monitors across England and Wales are either faulty or they haven't been installed at all. So basically, swimmers this summer have been swimming in human waste without even realising it.
And these water companies, these utility companies, get away with it yet again.
Right,
I'd
so
like to know what they do for their licence.
Right, they're leaking billions of litres of water every single day. They are imposing droughts,
Not creating reservoirs, selling reservoirs off, I read yesterday.
Bringing in a hosepipe ban, another one for London is coming in on Wednesday, and now they are basically pumping raw sewage. Beaches across Devon and Sussex have been closed this summer. It's just absolutely disgusting, and you do wonder what the water fat cat...
If I was Prime Minister or whatever, I'd be turning up for office whenever we eventually get a Prime Minister again, and I'd say, right, this morning, first on the list, right, water utility companies, right, let's turn the screws on them, let's make them work for their money.
Water, energy and power, come on. These are the basics, the basics of you know...
Basic of life.
But yet, we get to the Daily Star, front page of the Star.
Yes.
The Star about today, and it's well, anyway, it's about. It's about drunk wasps.
And they're German drunken wasps.
They're German, which makes it even worse. Right. After the summer we've all had, this is all we need. Tell us more, Chris.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, I don't know if you've seen a swarm of wasps and stuff, and then they make a racket, and it's very, very frightful.
Yeah, scary.
But because we've had such a hot spring, the wasps fraternity in Germany didn't die out. They got drunk on fermented fruit. The fruit's dropped early, and because the fruit's fermenting, it makes them drunk. They get drunk, they get themselves agitated, and they send a distress signal when they're agitated, and then they all start getting agitated, and then they go out and they sting people irrationally. So you do not want to be confronted by a swarm of German wasps going down the Rhine, over through Belgium, across the English Channel. You talk about boat crisis, forget the boat crisis, you've got the wasp crisis coming to a place near you.
On military manoeuvres, you made that sound like what they were doing there. We were plagued by wasps in our back garden, and we don't have any anymore.
Because?
Because I found, do you know those little magazines that come with the Sunday papers that everybody throws away, but they're full of very interesting little gadgets?
Yeah.
My wife doesn't think they're very interesting. She said, why are we keeping this for? Why are we keeping this for? But in it, I found this blow-up wasp's nest. So it's like papier-mâché, and it replicates the shape of a wasp's nest, right? Yeah. And you hang it on your umbrella or a hedge or whatever it is, and they think it's a rival wasp colony, and they don't. Honestly, we've had it for 2 years. Absolutely brilliant.
That is genius.
That is genius.
We
Do you
still
remember
have
fly
those.
papers? Do you remember fly papers?
Yes. Yeah.
Sticky fly papers.
Yeah.
With dead
well, I live
flies
in Germany, and they have them all in their front windows, and you've got all these flies sticking down there.
Hanging in the caravan window.
I tried to steal spaghetti from the shop, but the female guard saw me, and I couldn't get past her.
Oh,
He's ruined it. He's taken my lunchtime.
Boom.
Why, what did you do? Can you tell it better? Can you tell it better?
No, I can't tell it better, but that was the best joke given to the pasta pun at the Edinburgh Fringe. This is the comedian Masai Graham, and you've just told the joke.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm supposed to do, isn't it?
It's not a very good joke, is it? I tried to steal spaghetti from the shop, but the female guard saw me and I couldn't get past her.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant.
That's the best joke. We are going to the dogs, aren't we?
They get worse. Did you know if you get pregnant in the Amazon, it's next day delivery?
No, the best one. My dad suggested I register for a donor card. He's a man after my own heart.
Oh, that's quite good.
I like that.
I prefer that one.
My attempts to combine nitrous oxide and oxocubes made me a laughing stock.
Okay.
Yep, okay. Get that one.
Okay.
Anyway.
I like this one. I hate funerals. I'm not a morning person.
That's lovely.
So those were just
it's
some
not
of the
all
best
doom
jokes.
and gloom in this country. We got some good jokes.
They're splitting their sides at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, so there we go.
So that's the antidote for the energy crisis and stuff. All the doom and gloom we've got. Go to Edinburgh, see the Fringe, have a belly laugh.
Or watch you two next time you're on. Well, very good. Thank you so much, Chris and Emma. Thank you very much. Thoroughly enjoyed that this morning. Thank you.
Bless you.
We'll leave it there. Right, now it's time for On Your Doorstep.
And we're knocking on doors to find out what's important to our viewers at home. And today, Jeff Moody is in Swanage in Dorset. Good morning to you, Jeff.
Good morning. Well, I'm not knocking on doors right now. I'm shoveling coal, because one of the things I love about being a reporter is you get to live out your childhood fantasies. My boyhood fantasy was to be Doctor Who, but I've never managed to succeed in that one. But I am on a 1940s steam locomotive with the Swanage train company, and I'm here with Bob. Hello to you, Bob.
Hello there, good morning to you.
Good morning. So tell us about this locomotive that we're on right now.
This locomotive was built just after the war by the Southern Railway. It commemorates the Battle of Britain. It's named after a squadron in the Battle of Britain. It ran right up through into the 1960s. It could travel up to nearly 100 miles an hour if it was pushed, but we at the Swanage Railway do a more sedate 25 miles an hour.
Yes, it's not the Swanage train company, it's the Swanage Railway.
It's the Swanage Railway.
To get that right.
Running between Swanage and Corfe Castle through an area of outstanding natural beauty in the Isle of Purbeck in Dorset.
Now, it runs on coal, as we can see, lots and lots of coal. What happens when coal becomes less and less available, as it already is, isn't it?
It is a big challenge for us. The last Welsh steam coal mine is due to close in November. And there is lobbying to the Welsh Government to extend that period, but at the moment a lot of our coal has to come from abroad. We used to get coal from Russia, obviously that's no longer appropriate, so now it has to come from places like South America, South Africa, which obviously increases the cost. This time last year we were paying £174 a tonne, it's now over £400 a tonne we're paying, so effectively every shovel load that goes in there costs us £1.
So how do you cope with that? I mean, how do you cope with that? Because if visitor numbers are down and the costs are up so dramatically, are you going to be able to survive, do you think?
We are at the moment, like a lot of heritage organisations, facing a perfect storm. A lot of organisations had a drop in numbers because of their the cost of living, and as our coal costs are now well over $250,000. They've more than doubled from those figures that I gave you. So we're having to tighten our belts, and we're doing as much as we can. We've increased the cost of the tickets, although we still reckon the Swanage Railway is incredible value for money.
Of course it is.
We carry over 200,000 passengers a year. We're a railway that goes from somewhere to somewhere. We take 60,000 cars off the roads of Purbeck because people prefer to travel through nostalgic steam trains than on the car. So we do our bit for the local economy. We bring £14 million into the Swanage economy.
I mean,
so we do our bit.
You talk about nostalgic. I mean, that's the real thing with steam trains. Isn't it? I mean, it's oily and greasy and messy and everything, but there's a real romance about it. It tells tales of bygone eras, doesn't it? Everybody loves getting on a steam train. You know what I've always wanted to do?
We know what you want to do. Go on.
What do I want to do?
He wants to blow the whistle.
I want to blow the whistle. Can I blow the whistle?
Go on then, blow the whistle.
So it's just this.
Go on. Pull that.
Any techniques to blowing it?
Just pull it.
Just pull it.
As they say, just pull it.
Okay, here I am blowing my first steam train whistle. I love it.
You've always wanted to do that, haven't you?
I love it. That's it from me, from Swanage. Back now to you.
You do that very well.
That's a great sound, isn't it?
He's full of hot air, Jeff. He's full of it. He's just letting it off there, that's all. Very good, very good. Very good.
Still on the jokes this
time. So Swanage, now we know all about Swanage. So that's
we need to make a trip, don't we?
Good.
That's great. It's been great.
We're going to take the break there, and when we come back, we've got our economics and business editor, Liam Halligan, talking about the Felixstowe dock crisis, and incidentally, so many of you doing exactly that. Lillian said, I had to get taxis to go to an appointment. It cost me 25 quid. I can't afford it. I wish I had the wages of a bus or train driver to struggle to live on. It's a lot more than the state pension. This is just, we're talking about the summer of strikes and all that sort of thing. But Bernard says, what's wrong with strikes? People fighting for a better wage just to live. True, many can't strike, but do you blame those who do? When MPs get £2,000 to £3,000 rise every year without fighting for it with unlimited expense claims? Yeah.
George says Unite used to be the old Transport and General Workers Union. They should remember what happened to all of the ports and docks around the country. Also affect all the whole truck and transport. It's a good offer of 7% plus, says George. Russia must be laughing.
Right. Back in a few minutes' time. News at the top of the hour, or we need your company.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking rather cloudy with outbreaks of heavy rain moving eastwards across the country. A cloudy picture across southwest England with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. Feeling warm and humid with temperatures of around 20 Celsius. After a sunny morning across southeast England, cloud will begin to spill in from the west by lunchtime, perhaps a few showers arriving too. Wet across southern parts of Wales at midday. Outbreaks of rain could be heavy in places. Poor visibility over the hills and coast too. Cloudy for the Midlands this lunchtime with outbreaks of rain. The rain will be heavy at times with a risk of some surface water flooding places. Feeling humid but warm with light winds. It's a mixed picture this lunchtime across northeast England. Often cloudy with showery rain in places, but a few brighter spells are possible too. Temperatures approaching 20 degrees Celsius with generally light winds. The mostly dry and bright weather continues across southern Scotland, cloud amounts tending to increase from the south. Temperatures will be around 15 Celsius. Rather cloudy across much of Northern Ireland with a risk of some rain in places, perhaps a few bright or sunny spells developing from time to time, most likely in the far east. Rain will continue to move east through the day with scattered heavy showers following. Warm and humid for many.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A new week of strikes begins at the UK's biggest port, threatening Britain with empty supermarket shelves.
Good to have you on board. It's 9 o'clock. It's Monday, the 22nd of August. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Ecclestone, leading the news this morning.
Workers at the UK's biggest port, Felixstowe, have gone on strike for the first time in 30 years. It's in a dispute over pay. Dock workers are threatening to grind Britain's supply chains to a halt.
National Grid chiefs have proposed a plan that would pay people to avoid using energy-intensive appliances at peak hours. Under the scheme, customers could be paid to not wash clothes or dishes between the hours of 5 and 8 p.m.
And facing up to fraud allegations will be live outside London's Magistrates' Court as Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone prepares to defend claims he failed to declare £400 million worth of overseas assets to the government.
OK, you know how to join the conversation. Get in touch with us. The biggest reaction we're getting this morning is about this strike at Felixstowe. This is the biggest container port in the country. 50% of all traffic moves through Felixstowe, and this is the first strike of its kind in 30 years. Nearly 2,000 members of the Unite Union taking part in this. It's an 8-day walkout. The figure so far is that they've rejected a 7% pay offer from the Felixstowe Dock and Railway Company. Joining us now, Liam Halligan, our news economics and business editor on all of this one. Liam, this is a significant strike. I mean, you can say trains can inconvenience some people, but this can affect all people. Yes.
Felixstowe is our biggest container port, as you say, Eamonn. 40 to 50% of all containers that come in and out of the UK come through this port in Suffolk. First strike in 30 years, as you say. And it's been timed for maximum leverage by the unions. Why? Because we're just going into now the peak retail part of the year. It's the combination of the half-term holiday and Halloween, then so-called Black Friday in November, and then, of course, Christmas. So this is when shops are really stocking up on the stuff that we want to buy. It's clothes, bikes, DIY equipment, laptops, a whole bunch of stuff that we
So if this is prolonged, this is going to be noticed.
So I've been talking to some port bosses this morning. Felixstowe is a big port, but it's not the only port, of course. There are ports all the way up that east coast of the UK and indeed elsewhere. If it's contained to 8 days, it's doable because they can divert to other ports, not least Southampton. But if it goes beyond 8 days, beyond August the 29th, and if Unite workers at other ports then strike in order to turn the screw, if you like, then we will see serious problems. As it stands, there may be one or two items that you order on Amazon or one or two items you want in your local shop that might not be there for a while. There might be some little increase in prices because of the cost of, diverting a shipment to another port. But it's containable. If it goes beyond 8 days and spreads to other ports, it's going to become one of the biggest stories in town.
So, as we're hearing at the moment, the Unite Union have rejected a 7% pay increase. They want something in line with inflation. It's about 10%. But the issue with that is if everybody in the country is wanting a 10% or 11% pay increase, that in itself is inflationary, isn't it? That's the issue.
Indeed, and that pushes the cost of living up for everybody, which means those pay increases, to have even less effect. It's a complex picture at Felixstowe. Now, around 2,500 people work at Felixstowe, and around 500 or so, more on the clerical and administrative side, have accepted the 7% pay rise. It's around 1,900 Unite workers, more on the practical side, the crane operators, the stevedores, the people who do the physical work, most of the physical work. They're the ones that want more than 7%. Now, CK Hutchison have offered 7% plus an extra 500 quid. They say that adds up to 8.1 to 9%, depending on your particular job. But the unions say in response, look, this is a huge company. It's given out tens of millions of pounds in dividends over the last year. Unite claims that CK Hutchison have made £61 million profit in the last year, though the company haven't confirmed that number. And they say that this company can afford it. And a lot of other private sector workers and indeed public sector workers, as we go into the public sector pay round, those pay review bodies have reported, ministers are considering. Look, all in all, it's going to be an autumn of anger. There's going to be a lot of industrial action this autumn. And it's not just the private sector, like the dock workers, but I think it's going to be the public sector too.
Whether the company can afford it or not, the country certainly can't afford it. And I think this has got a lot of muscle, this strike, because whatever our perception is, and our perception with it is everything's going wrong, everybody's striking, fuel crisis, energy crisis, everything, people just think we can't afford things. This is going to give a perception when you can't get your selection box for Christmas, or when you can't get your tiles for your bathroom, or whatever, the most simple things, whether you can't get your new car, which you have ordered. This is really going to give an optic of it's all gone to hell.
We're in a cost of living crisis, Eamonn. For my money, it's as much a cost of lockdown crisis. We're still dealing with the complete discombobulation, the fact that the supply chains are still seriously disrupted. If you close down the global economy for 2 years, you can't just turn it back on again. We've seen massive increases in shipping and freight costs anyway since lockdown that are nothing to do with this strike. And that cost of lockdown combined, of course, with war in Ukraine, it's put us in this situation where inflation is spiralling, as Ellie rightly said. The Bank of England is saying it will hit 13%. I personally think it will peak higher than that. And we've got the Bank of England also predicting a recession towards the end of this year. So it gives me no pleasure to say all this. A recession is when you get 2 successive quarters of negative economic growth. Now, CK Hutchison, the owners of Felixstowe, say, look, there's a recession on, there's a financial crisis coming down the line. We're offering you 7% plus 500 quid. That is a reasonable offer. So they're sort of appealing to public opinion. But, you know, Unite, on the other hand, they have got power because this is such a powerful logistical port with 40 to 50% of containers coming through. The key thing on this, do other ports come out in sympathy? If that happens, then all bets are off.
And we've had 2 guests on this morning, Liam, who have both suggested that perhaps we should look at profit shares now rather than wage increases. And you're talking there about other ports maybe following in the example of Felixstowe. I suppose it depends on how it pans out for them. But is that something that you could look towards, the profit sharing, especially in companies such as this that are hugely profitable, that you go into their profits rather than doing pay rises? Is that better off for the economy?
Well, they're profitable for now, to a degree. On the other hand, a big chunk of what shipping lines pay out in costs is diesel, the price of which is rocketing. The thing about profit sharing is it's a really good idea when profits are up, but nobody wants to share the losses. So in the end, you know, it's a moot point. But we'll see what happens.
And we'll see what happens with Liam On the Money Show from 1 o'clock here on GB News. Stay tuned for that, Liam. Thank you very much indeed. We're going now to court and Westminster Magistrates. Today is the first hearing for the former Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone. He's been charged with fraud by false representation over an alleged failure to declare a lot of money. We're talking about 400 million quid on this. Let's go to Mark White, who's outside Westminster Magistrates. Mark, good morning to you.
Yeah, we're just giving you a shot now of this white Range Rover. Bernie Ecclestone is in the back of that. It's circled the block here now twice, looking for an opportune moment, obviously, for the 91-year-old to get out and to come into court. There has been a bit of a queue. There's a lot of press here, as you would imagine. So he is in the back. It looks finally as though the doors are about to open, and Bernie Ecclestone is coming out. Let's just listen in for a second. So the 91-year-old heading into Westminster Magistrates Court, where in the next half hour or so he will be standing in the dock to face a charge of fraud by false representation. Now that charge relates, we're told, to £400 million of undeclared liabilities, relates to a trust in the name of his daughters. He has 3 daughters, Deborah 67, 2 other daughters aged in their 30s, and it's with regard to £400 million that Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs say was undeclared by the former Formula One boss. They have mounted a very long and complex worldwide investigation, they said. At the time that he was charged last month, they said that this is an illustration of the fact that it doesn't matter how rich or powerful you are, if they believe that you have committed fraud against the Exchequer, they will go after you. So he is expected, as I say, within the next half hour to appear in court number 1 here at Westminster Magistrates Court, and it doesn't matter how rich or powerful or famous you are. There are few more humbling experiences than standing in the dock at this magistrate's court.
Goodness me, Mark, the figures are staggering, the accusation against him. They're talking about a possible fraud over failing to declare, and just let's get this right, 400 million, which is almost £500 million of assets. But these would be assets, the accusation being that he would have housed elsewhere, not in the UK.
That's right. It relates to money overseas, which is why, as I say, Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs say this has been a protracted and very complex worldwide investigation. They have, they believe, highlighted £400 million worth of assets which were not declared by the former Formula One boss. And in that sense, of course, that's £400 million worth of assets that were due, according to the Exchequer, to have tax paid on them. So he'll answer these charges in the fullness of time, of course. He is likely to face a trial, providing he doesn't plead before that process. But the allegations will be put to him, as they always are at the magistrate's court, in the shortest of processes, really. It's usually only 5 to 10 minutes, where the individual stands in the dock, they give and confirm their name. For the purposes of this court appearance, he is being referred to as Bernard Ecclestone. They confirm their date of birth and their address, and that address is an address at Knightsbridge in central London. As I say, it will be a brief appearance before he is given his next court date, likely to be in a Crown Court. We'll know what that is within the hour.
Mark White, appreciate it. We've got coverage then from Mark throughout the day here on GB News. Thanks, Mark.
Coming up, the Daily Mail's consultant editor Andrew Pearce will be here giving us his take on the big news stories of the day. That's after this.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Well, look, here we are. We're coming to the end of the programme, 10 minutes to go or so. And at this stage of the day, and on a Monday particularly, we invite Andrew Pearce, or he graces us with his company. He's the consultant editor at the Daily Mail. Very good to see you, my friend. We always like to what you have to say. Could I ask you, first of all, about Felixstowe is what's leading the news for us today. And this is a very powerful strike. Yeah. 50% of all business traffic goes through Felixstowe, and this will impact on us in the most mundane ways, the most ordinary ways, and the most special ways. Ali was talking about Christmas could be in danger because of all of this as well. So look, those people who are in a position and are represented by unions
They can put the squeezers on, can't they?
They can.
Yeah.
They can. And, you know, they've been offered a pay rise of around, it would average around 9%, which isn't bad. I know inflation is now 10.1%. Why don't these unions put the pay offer to the workers? They just don't. And it's the same as happened with the train strike last week. The RMT has been given a pay offer. The government say it's generous, the train operators say it's generous, but the RMT will not put it to their members. Are they frightened that the members may think, actually, we want to go back to work because we're losing so much money?
I think you're right. I think there's a danger that people will lose money during a pay strike, and people also accept, as all of us do, things are just not going to be the way they were. I remember about 15 years ago on television, they used to refuse you pay rises because they used to have this phrase, in the current circumstances, they used to use with the first recession. Well, we've never come out of the current circumstances ever since.
And I mean, we haven't had a strike at Felixstowe for 30 years. It just feels to me that these unions, this is Unite, of course, the big paymaster of Labour, they're trying to bring down the government, in my view. This is a concerted attempt.
You think this is all going to be joined up?
Yeah, and we've heard Mick Lynch from the RMT saying he wants other trade union leaders to get involved. They're going to talk to the TUC in September. There's talk of a general strike. Don't go there, because there was a general strike. We've only had one before in this country, 1926, ended in 9 days in total abject defeat for the unions, and the workers who they were supposed to be representing were seriously out of pocket, as will these workers be too, in my view.
But this does beg another response, which is we have got a government where the Prime Minister is deposed, he's on holiday. We've got another 2 weeks of this ridiculous pantomime that goes on. Surely what we're all begging for, what we're all crying for, is somebody get behind a desk and make some policies on the cost of living crisis.
Couldn't agree with you more. Now, we know from what we read in the Sunday papers, not Rishi Sunak, Kwasi Kwarteng, who's almost certainly going to be Chancellor of the Exchequer if Liz Truss wins, says they're already working flat out on plans, so she'll hit the ground running. But she's got to hit the ground running.
Got to.
Day one's shouldn't be about her cabinet reshuffle. It should be what she's going to tell the people about their fuel bills, because the energy cap is going to be reviewed again on Friday and costs are going to go soaring all over again.
Andrew, let's talk about your column, which is in the Daily Mail today. Keir Starmer's sorry attempts to get the unions on side. Now, this is very interesting, isn't it? Because Mick Whelan of ASLEF, he says he's not with Labour. He wants to almost cut ties with Labour over his their treatment of the unions in recent months. And Mick Lynch of the RMT saying that he doesn't recognise the Labour Party. I mean, Keir Starmer's got a real problem on his hands. He's a traditional Labour voter.
That's because he can't make up his mind whether he's a socialist and Labour supporter or not.
Exactly. And so what he's done, last week we discovered Labour have run up a £5 million deficit. They're in serious financial difficulties. Membership is falling fast.
100,000 members.
Because Labour members aren't enthused by Starmer. So he needs the union money. They bankroll the party. So despite the fact he's banned frontbenchers from joining picket lines, he then goes weasel words behind the scenes and apologises to 3 general secretaries of trade unions, including ASLEF, the train drivers union, saying, I'm really sorry.
Didn't really mean that.
And I hope you like me really because I need your money. It's pathetic. You've got to lead from here. Heart, gut, instinct.
Whether anybody watching or listening is a Labour Party supporter or not, at least you would have to recognise that if you're the head of the Labour Party, you're a socialist. And as a socialist, you agreed with trade unions, you would be there backing trade unions. Now, it's this wishy-washy, are you or aren't you? Can you stand in a picket line? Can you not? Are you going to be loud and proud and be out there and say, these workers are in the right and I support them? But it's not.
If Labour doesn't stand for the ordinary worker, what does it stand for? They're in I mean, the latest polls show they're about 8 or 9 points ahead. They should be 35 points ahead after what the country's gone through with the pandemic and Boris and Partygate, this Tory leadership contest, the Tories tearing themselves apart. 8 or 9 points ahead? It's not enough. Go back to 2011, Ed Miliband had a 15-point opinion poll lead. He still lost 4 years later.
Do you think Keir Starmer will regret the way that he's handled this summer of strikes? Because it really could have been an opportunity for him to be front and centre, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could. I think Keir Starmer does what the focus group tells him. He listens to, he talks to them all the time, groups of floating voters. It's government by focus group instead of government by instinct. And it's hopeless, it's lamentable. And you talk to a lot of Labour MPs and they say, we wish he'd got some points in that Durham Gate affair because then he'd have resigned and they could have got a leader with a bit of guts and a bit of fire in his or her belly. And let's face it, the next Labour leader has to be a woman. because we're going to have
Angela Rayner.
She's going to be the front runner. Rachel Reeves, Yvette Cooper, Lisa Nandy, because they're going to definitely pick Liz Truss. So that'll be the third woman Tory leader. Labour have not had one, and this is the party inclusivity and equality. We've never picked a woman leader.
Well, you talk about leader, but we go to the front page of the Times today, and the headline screams: Tory voters still want Johnson to be leader. He's favoured over Truss and Sunak.
In fact, favoured by both of their votes combined. So that's how popular he still is. I think people saw in Boris charisma. He got some things right, he got some things wrong. His handling of Partygate was lamentable. But he's one of the biggest beasts in the Tory jungle, and they've kicked him out. And they're going to regret it, because he's an election winner.
But he's incapable of detail, he's a narcissist, he's a liar, I mean, can I go on?
Yeah, well, the problem with Boris, in my view, is it's the relationship with the truth. He doesn't tell it.
He doesn't tell it.
He just doesn't tell the truth.
But you know what you're identified, and what I would recognise as well, is by and large, the majority of people don't seem to care.
They factored it in. They knew that this Prime Minister was a bit different to the other ones, and he got Brexit done almost, and he had a pretty good. I think he did quite well with the vaccine rollout. I don't think we should have gone into a second lockdown, but that's another argument for another time. And they look at Truss and they look at Sunak. Neither of them have set the country alight, have they? Let's be honest. In the last 6 weeks, we're all just desperate for it to end.
And also, Andrew, another thing is reputationally the damage that did. I mean, especially at the start of this campaign, Rishi Sunak was seen as a backstabber, seen as someone who...
The assassin never gets to wear the crown. Think Michael Heseltine, toppled Mrs Thatcher, and everyone assumed he'd win, and it was John Major, the dark horse who came through.
OK, well, to the people, and these are Tory members we're talking about here, is it remotely possible Boris could be back?
No.
No. OK, that's that answered. Now, something I want to talk about is, well, there's so many things I want to talk about. Prince Andrew, the musical.
Don't you love this?
Channel 4 say they're going to do this, and they have it full of musical skits like Come and Nibble on My Chocolate Eclair or something it was. A profiterole or whatever it was.
It's going to be the life and times of Prince Andrew. They're going to lampoon him. It's going to be really, really uncomfortable for him. This was a guy, when he came out of the Falklands War, was the most popular royal probably since records began. Look at him now, a discredited old slob who paid £12 million to a woman he apparently never met, Virginia Giuffre. So they're going to see... It will be a funny take on Prince Andrew.
Would you go and see it?
I would.
You would?
I would, yeah.
The poor Queen, though, you've got to think of the Queen in all of this.
I know, she'll go and see it. And it is her favourite son, apparently.
Her favourite son.
I know.
Yeah, it's humiliating, is the word.
Do you play golf?
No.
Right. Well, there's a transgender woman.
I know, it's outrageous.
Golfer set to become the first transgender to win the Ladies PGA Tour card. Tell us more and what you think.
This is a trans woman. So a few years ago, this woman was playing as a man. She was a man. And she's transitioned and now wants to play golf against women. Judy Murray, for instance, Andy Murray's mother, is saying it's outrageous. You cannot have trans women competing alongside women in sport, whether it's golf or boxing.
Golf's a very good example because there's two tees in golf. There's a male tee, as in where you tee off from, which is much further back than the female tee, because women's muscles and things aren't as well developed in their legs and whatever. So don't know if you play golf or not, but there's the women's tee and there's the men's tee, which is much further back.
Because men can hit it further.
Yes.
And so she, the trans golfer, has a huge advantage over every other woman, and I don't think it should be happening.
And she'll play off a woman's tee?
Yeah, she will.
With a man's muscles?
She will. She will. And it's causing a predictable row. And, of course, if you ask the Labour leader, Keir Starmer, about it, he doesn't even know if it's only women have cervixes.
Well,
complicated
Andrew Pearce, this is why GB News have signed up Andrew Pearce for his own show come the autumn, and we hope you have a good summer. We really look forward to welcoming you to the team and tuning into your programme, my friend. So,
thank you.
Welcome on board.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Andrew.
Well, good to have you watching and listening to us this morning. Will we do it again tomorrow?
We will.
We will
from 6 o'clock tomorrow morning if you'll join us.
Yeah. Up next, you got Tom Harwood with The Briefing. Have yourselves a good and safe Monday. Enjoy whatever you're up to. See you in the morning.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking rather cloudy with outbreaks of heavy rain moving eastwards across the country. A cloudy picture across southwest England with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. Feeling warm and humid with temperatures of around 20 Celsius. After a sunny morning across southeast England, a cloud will begin to spill in from the west by lunchtime, perhaps a few showers arriving too. Wet across southern parts of Wales at midday. Outbreaks of rain could be heavy in places. Poor visibility over the hills and coast too. Cloudy for the Midlands this lunchtime with outbreaks of rain. The rain will be heavy at times with a risk of some surface water flooding places. Feeling humid but warm with light winds. It's a mixed picture this lunchtime across northeast England. Often cloudy with showery rain in places, but a few brighter spells are possible too. Temperatures approaching 20 degrees Celsius with generally light winds. The mostly dry and bright weather continues across southern Scotland, cloud amounts tending to increase from the south. Temperatures will be around 15 Celsius. Rather cloudy across much of Northern Ireland with a risk of some rain in places, perhaps a few bright or sunny spells developing from time to time, most likely in the far east. Rain will continue to move east through the day with scattered heavy showers following. Warm and humid for many.
Tonight on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.